available to either like kids or to whatever, right? So like something where it actually gives you this was taken with X or Y, you know? Also is I feel like almost just as important as editing, right? Because there will be people who get so frustrated as to like, why can't they take a picture like this? And they don't realize that it's a totally different device capturing the image.
Right. Yep. Yep. Well, it's going to be, it's interesting, but it is one of these things where it was hard enough for kids. And I think even my female friends, when growing up in the age of Barbie, that was clearly an issue. And then if that, am I correct to assume that that's just going to get multiplied as a result of this over editing Instagram? The nature of Instagram is taking that same concept, and kind of multiplying it a bit. But once we're in VR, I don't know that it will matter anymore. We're gonna be tweaking the shit out of each other's, appearance it all becomes VR and there's no physical meetings anymore. Oh man, it's gonna be wild. Okay,
I have
so
one, Tyler.
yes, sounds like
I have a
Johan.
critical.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Johan. I have a critical one. A actually the second largest pharmacy chain, together with Coop, which is Walmart of Sweden, has been hit by a ransomware attack, and all the pharmacies and all these large Coops, you that have lived in Gothenburg knows that these are very, very large supermarkets. They have been hit by ransomware, and they have all the shops and all the pharmacies are shut down since Friday. You want to speak?
Whoa. Hang on. Okay, let me unpack this. Coop, Coop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Coop is a supermarket. It's there's basically three big supermarkets in Scandinavia. It's Hemshop, and Coop and Ica. And so Coop, one of the really big supermarket franchises or brands, has been hit with a ransomware attack, and so they've shut down the stores.
Yeah, they can't operate the cash
Oh.
registers. I just sent you the link in Swedish, so now it's time to warm up your Swedish again,
I
Mike.
can read Swedish just fine. It's just I can't pronounce this shit. That's the problem.
Okay.
That's
So
how I feel about Norwegian. I took it for a language requirement in undergrad, and I remember some words and I remember some phrases, but for the most part, like if I were ever to go to Norway, I would just be able to say I live in an apartment and I like dogs.
yeah, reading is actually quite simple. The problem is pronouncing the words. And by the way, in all fairness, I just have to say, Johan, that living in Japan and learning Japanese, as anyone who else has done, and Cheryl can confirm, the word that you will hear as a non-Japanese person, as like a young child wandering around the streets of Tokyo, you will hear many phrases being repeated. But the phrase that you will hear most oftenly repeated in Japan is sugoi, 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 sugoi. Everyone's saying sugoi.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my
yes,
god!
yes. And then you start wondering, what is this word sugoi? Because everyone's saying it all the time. And it turns out that the word sugoi means wow, or holy shit, or oh my god. It's this expression of excitement, which is quite endearing in its context. Anyway, so it's meant as a kind of compliment also, like, oh, that's so interesting. Anyway, so then you come to Thailand, and if you don't speak any Thai, like a child, you will observe that there's phrases being repeated, and the most repeated phrase is gin cow, gin cow, gin cow. And gin cow means let's eat, let's eat, let's eat, let's eat, let's eat, because that's all they're talking about half the time. About every third sentence ends with ginkgo, because that's the core of Thai living is eating. Thai food. All conversations lead to eating. So then you have in Scandinavia, or most notably Sweden, you're riding the train, you're walking around, and you notice you'll hear several phrases. But one phrase will really jump out quite quickly, which is vasadu. Vasadu, 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 which simply means, what did you say? What did you say? What did you say? as if
or,
they
or,
don't.
or, or just a short one, va, which is
What?
vad
Yeah,
sa du in the
vad,
short, va?
yeah, vad sa du?
In short.
They have trouble understanding each other, and so you'll. I don't feel so bad not being able to pronounce the words because clearly they struggle with it themselves. They struggle to understand each other, even though they are born speaking it. So, in my defense, yes, I can read it fine. So let me find this article that you tweeted. But this is quite interesting, and I imagine, in some sense, Johan, that this is
Yeah.
related to the fact that Sweden is cashless. And when you hear Sweden is cashless, you think to yourself, oh, well, they have cash in their wallets, they don't use it. No, no, no. I've been there for now 9 years. I've never seen a dollar bill or a coin. That's how cashless it is. You go to use a public toilet at Coop at the supermarket. They have little public toilets, but you got to pay to enter it with a credit card, and that doesn't accept cash. And then you go and you're somebody playing music on the street or whatever, and you want to give them a tip. I've even seen like kind of when there were refugees kind of begging in the street, they can take credit cards, and so it's. I mean, this is just to give you a context of how fully digitized the economy is, how cashless. Burger King doesn't take cash. Starbucks does not take cash. Nobody's taking, and they have signs that say we do not take cash. And even Burger King, whose big marketing thing is you can have it your way, Burger King says you can have it your way, but you can't pay cash. Like that's how little they take cash. So now my point is with Coop, the problem is when the digital infrastructure has a hiccup, what do you do? Because now you cannot sell anything. And I think this hack has highlighted a vulnerability in the system where if you did take cash, by the way, the power goes out in Thailand quite frequently. And when it does, the staff write down the SKU number of every item you buy by hand on a piece of paper with a pencil, and you pay cash because the people still use cash here. But that's not an option in Scandinavia because nobody has cash. So hence the supermarket has to shut down. What do you think, Johan?
Yeah, the thing is here that we don't have ATMs, and the thing is that in the 90s we had ATMs in any corner of any street. The thing is that in Stenungsund, which is the town which is closest to where I live, there is one ATM for the whole city, and that's a city of 15,000 people. There's one.
Yeah, well, which
And
no
same
one,
in
which no,
Gothenburg, I
which
think there
nobody
is six
uses.
or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, we don't use it. The only ones that use cash is the shady sector.
correct. Yeah, funny enough, you're right. As a drug using, sex club visiting person, I know exactly what you mean. So, no,
Oh,
but
you don't need to tell us. We already knew
oh,
that.
did I say that out loud? God damn it! So, but I do happen to know that you're right. That's kind of an understood aspect. Yeah.
Did we also cover yesterday that 200 businesses in America got hit by ransomware too yesterday?
No.
Oh, I
No,
just
that's
checked
a
it.
new headline.
But
Yeah, I
Johan,
tweeted it
Miami
out.
IT.
Johan, do we know this? And let's jump on both of these simultaneously. Is the Coop hack, is that suspected to be Eastern European and kind of the same usual suspects?
The thing is, that since it's only reported in the mainstream media, they don't say anything more than all the shops are closed and it's due to ransomware. Apparently, they have used a remote control software, TeamViewer or something like that, to
Yeah.
actually get entry into the systems, and from there it goes steep downhill. The thing is, since it's Saturday, I don't have anyone that I know of that I can knock on the head and ask, "Do you know anything more?"
Okay.
So
How
on Monday I will know more.
how long
So,
ago did you send in that article? By the way, I'm not seeing it.
I send it as a DM
DM.
to
Okay,
you
got it.
personally
I see.
on your.
so, so
Okay.
Johan, are they giving away the perishables since they cannot sell, like the meat and the
Ooh,
vegetables?
No,
because
no, 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 no.
Cheryl's on her way.
No, I don't think so.
Johan,
The thing is
run!
here that they. No, the thing is here that they usually have facilities, and the thing is here that all the Swedish large shops are right on time delivery. So the replenishment in the shops is done by the bakery, by the meat, the distributor of meat, etc. So they don't have any much storage in the shop. So they don't have any panic regarding those things yet. Though I think those that are replenished them is going to get mad because they will fill their freezers and cooling rooms now with things that will expire in date before they can actually use them. So yeah, this will be a peak trashing on Monday.
And so what about the US one, Cheryl? It was 200 of what?
The 200 American businesses are affected. Apparently, this Miami IT company is being investigated now because they are the source. So anyway, it was a ransomware attack. I just tweaked.
I got it. I just retweeted it. I found an English version of the Swedish one that Renjith found the Swedish version. Thank you, Renjith. I just retweeted that. And I just retweeted yours, Cheryl. It says, latest ransomware attack appears to hit hundreds of American businesses. The U.S. Cybersecurity Agency said it was investigating the attack after an incident at the Miami-based IT firm called Kaseya. And so those are both now on the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. And speaking of supermarkets, Frost just sent one in from Bloomberg that says Fortress agrees to buy Morrison for about $8.7 billion in cash. And this is a follow-up to a headline that we touched on briefly about 2 weeks ago. Cal, you'll remember that Morrison's was...
Tyler, just sorry, just a quick one on that. If you could do it, perhaps expand upon this a little bit, because Fortress, as a lot of people would know, has invested into, I mean, they're invested into pretty much everything, right? Whether it's crypto, whether it's conventional finance, whether it's private equity into different spaces such as, be it medical or whatnot, and then acquiring a chain such as Morrison's for $8.7 billion in cash. That's cash in today's environment. That's a huge deal. And why?
Yeah, and for us, there was a bidding war on this, right?
Yeah,
the two or three private equity houses, and the general theme, Tyler, you relate to is these supermarket chains.
Cal,
Just go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Just what I'm trying to get on here is why would they do that? Because this is the power of this room that I really love encouraging in discussion on. Why would they do this? If you look at their underlying holdings, they hold everything that we've ever been talking about, building in the financial system, building in the e-commerce systems, building in the delivery systems, building in the payment systems, building in versions of Stripe, data collection, etc., all of that, and having as a financial player, by even having acquired that chain and being able to participate in all of those sectors together, what kind of power Fortress then gives itself in all of those sectors. This is going to turn into a huge deal because they bring everything to the table. I'll leave it at that. Cal, maybe you and
No, for us, I was only going to add to what you're saying. I don't have a major, but just to relate to the thesis that we've been talking about, which is that these supermarket chains, including Amazon, right? So they're like a supermarket chain with Whole Foods and also their own store now, and they'll open more, obviously. But past the pandemic, these supermarket chains have suddenly become hugely valuable, obviously because they've been useful. But to the thesis that we've been talking about, they're also a really good place to collect data, real data, all kinds of data, right? So they've become so valuable, so everyone's outbidding them. And Morrison's is this kind of North UK. It's all over the UK, but it's mostly in the North. And Amazon was involved in them. Ocado, which is a robotics company, was also involved with them. So, it's a useful asset, but its value is just like gone up. I think, what is it, like 42% premium on its share price? I'm looking here. So this thing is, to your point, for us, people are seeing a lot of value in these supermarkets now, and that's the thesis we've been talking about, Tyler.
Right. And let's reveal some of these interesting realizations that we've all kind of stumbled upon recently, due to the fact that Amazon is a data company and just launched their own very large-scale supermarket, in addition to the fact that they already owned Whole Foods, right? They own Whole Foods, which is, to me, the best supermarket chain on the planet. And yet they just opened, and they have Amazon Go's, their little quick shops that are filled to the brims with cameras and lights and everything. And then they opened a full-fledged, big old American-style supermarket, the likes of which Europe doesn't really have, or actually the rest of the world doesn't really have. And it's almost like a goddamn shopping mall full of food is what it is. And these massive American supermarkets, why would Amazon feel the need to have one of those when it already has Whole Foods, which are also very big supermarkets, even by American standards, very large supermarkets, and their little half-size supermarkets, what they call Amazon Fresh or Amazon Go, kind of like a double-sized 7-Eleven or something. Anyway, so it turns out that they are indeed, well, there's no staff in them for one thing, and that tells you all you need to know, which is that they're full of cameras, because and the cameras are not just looking at your face and the items that are in your cart, and then you just go on your merry way, you just walk straight out to your door. Because it knows what you put in your cart, and it doesn't make mistakes. That's, it's watching you so very incredibly closely. And they're using bifocal cameras, where they put the cameras 6 inches apart like human eyes, so they can get 3D kind of capturings of your face and all kinds of crazy shit. And it turns out that they're also able to do incredibly interesting tests of everything that you're looking at on the shelves. So if you're debating between Pop-Tarts and the competitor, or two brands of diapers, or two types of salt or salsa, and two types of tortilla chips or bean dips, or it doesn't matter, they're able to do a new level of analysis of human shopping behavior that's really never been able to be done before at mass scale. And that it boggles my mind to think of how they're going to be able to leverage that, because they're going to know and record, and I assume it'll be tied to you as an individual, that you were clearly spent 3.752 seconds looking at salsa brand B and 7.5867 seconds looking at salsa brand A, and they're going to tell both salsa companies and monetize that data somehow. But then because the cameras can tell without you revealing your age. Oh, shall we do this again? Shall we, Chris? Are we overdue? Has it been a week yet since I've told everybody what these cameras can do by looking at your face? Let's just give a little reminder, shall we? Here's what these cameras can now get from your face. More specifically, the combination of your face and your eye, because these cameras are now been improved to a degree where they can read now from your iris the following: your gender, very simple; your age, absolutely trivial; your physical health characteristics, like if you've ever had a concussion, if you have chronic pains, vision disorders. From your eyes, they can detect if you have vision disorders. Obesity, that's a little easier, I guess. Parkinson's disease, your mental health status, like if you've had depression, PTSD, autism, or eating disorders. Your drug consumption, if you've recently consumed alcohol, tobacco, cocaine, MDMA, cannabis, just to name a few. So imagine how they will tie all of these together. And I said they have your age, and then you become part of a cohort. This is part of the cutting edge of data collection and machine algorithm learnings at the moment is, and Google's been doing this for a while, which is, let's use me as an example, as a early, 40 something white male, obviously handsome, obviously genius, and all of these other characteristics that it puts me into this bucket of a cohort. And then all the other 40 something, but my same age, my same gender, sex, income level, education level, and it knows the patterns and the behaviors of that characteristic. And so they look at everyone else and what they just bought, and then they know I'm very likely to buy that as well. So they start to create, we're starting to realize, due to the power of the scope and scale of artificial intelligences, that we are much more like ants than we dare imagine. That we, in fact, follow into predictable patterns more than we assume. And it really starts to edge up against the issue of free will. That and many experts in the field will say very adamantly that we do not have free will. That what we think is free will is not. It's that we are actually running a program. That we are actually biological robots. But we just fall under this illusion that we have free will. And perhaps these artificial intelligences, when they're able to analyze everything from the Mars perspective with all of the data, it can almost, sort of decipher and crack the code of the free will issue by saying, oh, no, we already know exactly what you're going to do next before you do. We already know which song out of these 50 songs you're going to save to your playlist, as we send you this list of songs. So it's we're not exactly there yet, but the due to the graph of the curve of the improvements, how fast this technology is improving its ability to predict what our next move is going to be, it's not far off. So
And
it's,
Tyler, with
yeah,
this technology that you just laid out, right? And even if it was like 50% there, right? Like, it's like this is huge, 50% in like 5 years. Let's say all of what you just said, all of it is mass in 5 years. Let's say 30%, 50%. What you've now got is the battle. You can see to the headline Faraz just brought there around Morrison's going, at such a premium, and you see all the other supermarkets here, supermarkets and generally because it's food, right? It's food, and
products.
food is related to health, and health is, this is very linked. There's another small, I saw the headline, but I can't find it now, but I'll find it. Another small chain here in the UK called Holland and Barrett. And it's kind of like they sell health foods and vitamins and all those kind of things, right? And it's owned by a private equity firm. It's full disclosure. I advised in that a while ago when they bought it and stuff. But what's interesting is that they're now selling. For example, they're selling products to help gamers have concentration as they game, right? They're also selling products. Can you imagine like content creators, right? Like you said the other day, how these content creators have to be on 24 hours, and they're just going to have these kind of energies. So the food thing helps people perform better, and also health,
They're retail
etc. So
athletes.
yeah, that's exactly. So what's happening is that's where the value is, right? So you can just see. I mean, if you wanted to get bullish, which is kind of weird because pre-pandemic, supermarkets, people kind of like, they were pretty discounted as a category, but now they're it's an interesting thing, and because of the health, right? And we saw the headlines yesterday. We brought up on Walgreens, and then also we know what Walmart's been doing. So interesting headline for us. This is it's good.
So
Hey,
just one last add-on, if I might, Tyler.
Yeah, but
Is that
just to
okay?
think of a supermarket as an AI laboratory, just given the ability to do so much data collection on so many people in so many interesting ways. Yeah, go ahead for us.
Right. So what Cal hit there, and then Chris, maybe if you want, and the room has time for it, maybe we can do a quick 30-second add-on to this. What I'm interested in is, you see, when the pandemic happened, supermarkets were most affected, right? Because of the physical delivery model, or the touching model of the groceries being delivered, or even having to go to a grocery store, and the run on grocery stores on account of, for example, toilet paper in the United States. A little bit of sense of humor there, but 42% premium. I mean, at a time like this, it is so clear, and this is why I love this room. It is so clear that everything that we have been talking about here applies, because that 42% premium is not being paid for those physical locations. It is being paid for data on a particular demographic that Morrison's has a holdover in the United Kingdom and the various other locations that they may or may not be present in. What is that demographic? And if we figure out that demographic, which I don't know, then that gives you an exact understanding of what they're doing here. And when Cal talks about wellness products and health products and food related to that, it is clear that what they're going after is artificial intelligence related to that, in my humble opinion. And this is just the thesis that I'm looking at. Artificial intelligence related to healthcare, wellness, and building towards the same thing, which is, whether it be Amazon Cares, whether it be pharmacies, whether it be that, or whether it be delivery models associated with, once again, healthcare. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Tyler said it. Like Tyler, this is it. Consumer AI labs, right? Because these are low margin businesses.
It's an
They're
e-commerce. It's
not
an
meant to be
e-commerce lab. Yeah,
42% premium.
And when you think about it, one of the advantages Amazon and other online retailers have is in the efficiency of actually getting the product you want to you. Like that's the dilemma of a big store like Target. They have like, 1,000 SKUs and maybe only 20% get consumed in an average day, right? So they have to buy a lot of stuff they never sell. And that's the thing that's unique about Amazon is, whatever you order ultimately gets to you. And so now they have this challenge in Amazon having physical locations where they may not know exactly what to stock now the way they used to. So this data is ultimately important in the efficiency of them and everything you mentioned about AI, health tech and stuff. But I think that's why they got so into the cameras is they need to now figure out a way to sell in a way they've never had to sell before.
So, other awesome headlines happening right now, and people are sending in some really interesting things kind of on this topic. Cheryl, while we were discussing this, found a really interesting article about fake science is getting faker thanks to AIs. And it's from the Next Web, which is based out of Europe here. Fake science is getting faker thanks AI. Journals are retracting more and more papers because they're not by the authors they claim to be. The practice of science involves trying to find things out about the world by using rigid logic and testing every assumption. Researchers then write up any important findings in papers and submit them for possible publication. After a peer-reviewed process in which other scientists check that the research is sound, journals publish papers for public consumption. That's the game. That's how it works. Now, you might therefore reasonably believe that published papers are quite reliable and meet high quality standards. You might expect small mistakes that got overlooked during the peer review, but no major blunders. It's science after all. You'd be wrong in expecting this, though. Real and good science does exist, but there's a worrying amount of bogus research out there too. And in the last few years, it has increased in volume at lightning speed, as evidenced by the skyrocketing number of paper retractions. A number of practices currently threaten to undermine the legitimacy of scientific research. That's huge. That's a huge sentence. They include made-up authors, the addition of scientists who had nothing to do with the paper as co-writers, and even more nefarious practices like swamping journals with submissions from low-quality AI-written junk, meaning GPT-3, by the way. This process is similar to a recall at the grocery store. If a previously sold product is bad or dangerous for some reason, the store might decide to recall it and ask all the customers not to use it. Similarly, a journal can recall a published paper that, in hindsight, turned out to be bogus. Of course, sometimes papers get retracted because the authors made an honest mistake in their research. In more than half of the cases, however, it's because of academic misconduct or fraud. Up until a decade ago, this sort of behavior was more or less limited to researchers falsifying experimental data or skewing results in favor of their theories. The more sophisticated technology has become, however, the more things have gotten a lot more complicated. One simple solution would be to just ignore bogus papers. The problem, though, is that they're often hard to identify. Also, once a paper is retracted from publication, that tarnishes the entire journal a bit. Let this happen often enough, and the public's confidence in science as a whole goes down. Indeed, that's where we find ourselves in 2021. Therefore, the scientific community as a whole needs to take this problem very seriously. It's a really interesting thought that had not occurred to me. Open to the floor to anyone who has a thought on that, because that is quite an interesting observation.
This is Matt. I mean, I can jump in on this. The peer review process seems holier than it actually is. I mean, I'm on the editorial board for 2 journals. I serve as a reviewer for a ton of them. The volume, particularly during COVID, but even before that, just is very, very high. So there's kind of like, oh, we want you to review this paper in 1 week or 2 weeks. Please get it back to us quickly. So it's like you kind of check to see does the science make sense? And if it kind of there are definitely cognitive biases that go into it. You don't have access to the primary data, so you kind of look at their methods and you take a lot of it at face value. So all the things that are mentioned in the article are definitely true. I am not sure if I've ever come across an AI written paper, but that being said, I don't know if the AI written paper would just pass the Turing test and I would have glossed over it or not. But so I'd say just the volume. It's the volume of stuff that's coming in. The number of journals that are kind of out there now. They're very low tier journals that
yes,
are
that's what they talk about. So, yeah, that's in this article as well.
Quote unquote,
paper mills, they call them.
Peer reviewed. Yeah, it's quote unquote peer reviewed, but it's open access and you have to pay to get your paper published there. So there's a lot of junk at many levels.
Right. So check this out. It says entire companies. Hold that thought. hold your horses there. Entire companies make money writing gibberish papers and submitting them to predatory journals that hardly reject anything because they charge a fee for publishing. Such companies are dubbed paper mills and getting more and more sophisticated in their methods. Although fraud detection is also getting better, experts have legitimate fears that these unscrupulous actors have honed their craft, targeting low-quality journals may try to swamp real ones next. Of course, there's another question on the horizon. How much longer will humans be the only ones writing research papers? Could it be that in 10 to 20 years, AI-powered algorithms are able to automatically sift through swaths of literature and put their conclusions in a new paper that reaches the highest standards of research? How are we going to give credit to these algorithms for their creators? And that leads to another headline we saw recently about an AI potentially in the future, winning a Nobel Prize.
Hey, Tyler,
Let me just
this
add
is
to this
Asif
real
here.
quick. So when
So if I
GPT,
can add, like,
Yeah.
GPT,
Hold on. I had previously cut off, I think, Katarina. So let's go back to
yeah.
Katarina, and then you could go on.
So the problem is, which is discussed since a bunch of years, and the EU is trying to do something about it, but it's still not effective. So the problem is, you have the pressure as a scientist to publish in this high impact journals to get more grants and to move on with your career. However, the first thing that is already wrong is that the data you created is paid by public money, but then this data, these results get held hostage by those journals that never paid anything for the research. And you have to pay like $6,000 to publish in them because none of them are for free. They are very expensive. You need to pay this money, and then you need the public has to pay money to read this data that they paid for. So
They're double dipping.
Wrong. Yes. And then we have the pressure to if you
Did she cut out?
that you get fully philanthropist money, you don't have to publish at all. You just need to give them, progress and real progress, because nobody cares about journal publication like the sense about the aging thing. You just need to find out something that stops aging. But in the regular academia world, you need to keep publishing in order to move on with your career and to get more and more grants. Like, you have to. So this is a very wrong pressure, and it's known that
right. But let's help people understand why. It's because you need the currency in this game is citations, and the way to get citations is to have published articles that people are citing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
Tyler,
exactly.
can I just come in here?
And this gives you a pressure. We know this from a bunch of research, that pressuring a research group in all these ways just comes out bullshit. Like either bullshit projects, bullshit papers,
right.
and so on and so forth.
Right.
So that is the system that is wrong. It's bad for the public because the data gets held hostage, and it's bad for the research itself.
And
so
just to make it easy, hang on, Katarina. Just to make it easy, hold on, Katarina. To make it easy for my mom to understand, the getting citations is kind of like getting a retweet, and to get a retweet, you need to have a tweet, which is a publication. You imagine if Twitter was very selective about who could tweet, and once your tweet was allowed into Twitter, then it's a question of how many retweets did you get, and then future employers and whatnot perceive your value based on how many followers and how many retweets your tweets are getting and how many tweets Twitter accepted you to have. So it's about how many published articles do you have, and how many retweets do those published articles get, which is the citations, and hence there becomes a disincentive to use AIs to create fake tweets, essentially. So it's becoming a crazy game, indeed. Yeah.
But Tyler, can I
add?
Gabby, hold on. Gabby, Professor Asif was waiting, and then we'll go Gabby. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think publication is absolutely crucial because it's peer reviewed.
Yes.
And if you think of the vaccine, people have not believed governments, but they have, once it's come out of New England or Lancet, people have accepted that data to be validated. It's very true. High citation, high impact journals is where you need to put. Yes, it costs a lot of money, and the best business has been for decades in academic publications. When I say academic, it's not just from academia, it's also from Regeneron. If you go and look at Regeneron on Genentech, they're publishing in top quality journals. So high impact journal publication is here and it will stay, and it is peer reviewed. And
I'm sorry, it won't. And we know that it's not improving the quality because the rejection, even in the high quality papers, is even higher than in the lower ones.
Can
And
the
we know
professor
that the
finish his
system is
thought?
not working.
Okay.
So and
We,
the data as whole has
Katerina, distraction.
Katerina,
Katrina,
say
I mean,
let's
yes,
let
pull.
him
it's
finish his
Hold on
thought.
there. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, let him finish his thought.
That's all right. So then, who was it there? Gabby, go ahead. You had a quick comment.
Yeah, I was just going to add that and you guys should be mindful that scientific integrity is a part that has been violated, at least for the past 4 years here in the United States. And it's been violated by the scientists that have been writing the articles, the peer reviewers, and the people that have wrote complaints about scientific integrity on the federal government level. And I know that because Tyler knows where I work and where I'm from. And so I hope that there is a change to that because, we could have this AI thing, but when scientific integrity itself is not being is being compromised and allowed at the highest levels, then we really have a lot of misinformation and disinformation
Yeah, we got to
being
be
shared out
careful.
there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because already we have a problem with believing the science, specifically climate science. America is third in the world, and then the leading of the most developed countries in not believing climate science already. So that this is, which one might argue might be the most important science to keep believable, especially with what's going on simultaneously in British Columbia and the Gulf of Mexico as we speak. So it's concerning developments indeed.
Hey, Tyler.
Yes, Anthony.
Tyler.
Hey, this is Anthony. I'm an AI researcher, and I'd just like to add a couple of things from an
Go ahead.
NLP standpoint.
Yeah.
So back when I had time, a few years ago, and when GPT was being used, GPT-2 was being used, I would automate a number of things for writing purposes. And we probably will use GPT-3 to automate a number of our scientific stuff and peer reviews and IRBs and whatnot.
I appreciate you coming clean now that we can report you in as the source behind all of this mischief. Go ahead, Anthony.
So I was actually one of the first 10,000 AI researchers that OpenAI gave the beta version of GPT-3 access to, so I can shed some firsthand experiences. And
here we go.
If anyone's been in that playground,
Confessions of a GPT-3er.
There are different.
Come clean, Anthony. Tell us.
I'll be honest.
Welcome to confession.
And it shows you a lot of the biasness behind the minds of AI engineers who were, the developers. I won't go too far, but that's why they open it up to AI researchers to play around with it.
And that very first time, you turned to your friend and you said, "I have a great idea." You knew it was wrong, Anthony.
Tyler's sudden confession.
Welcome to confession, Anthony. Go ahead and tell us what happened.
Well, in this one case, when I was playing around in the playground, there are different engines, and I was in the Q&A engine, the question and answering. So I was just asking a bunch of questions, like who's Anthony Moose, blah, 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 blah. And then it must have taken some things out of context by the time I went to like question 6 or 7. And so then the last question I asked, I was like, what is Parkinson's? And then the freaking engine was like, Anthony, you of all individuals would probably develop Parkinson's out of this entire world. And I immediately reported it to the developers at OpenAI. So.
And then you realized you'd opened the Pandora's box.
Well, okay, so that's one thing. Another thing I want to add, previously when we were talking about the psychology and shopping and camera stuff, may I add some 2 cents on that? So I was also a part-time researcher in the psychophysiology lab in the psychology department at Stanford University. And I worked under Dr. Paris Marine. I believe most of the labs.
Let's go ahead and name all the names. Go ahead.
Well, I believe. No, this is slightly different.
Don't worry, you're not recorded.
Let's go ahead and bring them all in on this too. You want to ping them in the room?
It's between you and Tyler in the little confession.
It's
room.
time to name names. We're coming clean. It's a confessional, everybody.
Just DM me on Twitter, and I'll say.
Go ahead, Anthony.
But geez, where was I?
You were about to tell us everyone who's ruining science.
No, we're the good people. We're actually pushing science for our Come on. All right, so on that point, we're in a data-driven world. Okay, quick question: have you ever seen the Hulu show Devs?
You can't change the topic on us like that. We're already
Okay. The reason
we know what you're up to, Anthony. Nice try, Anthony.
The reason why is because if you watch the show Devs, there's a lot of themes and technologies packed into that. Freaking phenomenal producer and director, but at the heart of it is causality, causal inference. So Tyler, when you were mentioning how Amazon's collecting all this data and their shopping lab experience, it's all psychologically driven for data-driven experience, right? They're going to collect all these statistical data points, and the framework at the heart is going to be a causal framework. And this causal framework, I mean, at that time I was working for human regulation and emotional understanding, but you can take that framework and apply it to a number of other areas for political decision.
Oh, do tell.
Oh, lots and lots of things. But anyway, there are teams out there, nation states out there that have, so let's say Russia.
Which part of the world? Okay, let's say Russia. Okay.
Russia, China, U.S., CIA, DOD, NSA, everyone is working towards these, supercomputers for data-driven experience, and they're all using causal inference. And yes, we're getting to the point where all these states and Google and Apple and Amazon are doing this too. Everyone has secret labs to try to figure out the future. And I'm talking big data engineering world. And you can look up some of these white papers.
Now, Anthony, would this have anything to do with the fact that Google is just essentially made a huge deal to take over downtown San Jose to make their Google town?
I don't mind. I live in San Jose.
No, my point is this essentially a data lab of sorts?
Oh no! I just think they just want, dude. They're buying everything all over here.
Right,
they just want
for the first time now they can have different pools and silos of data that now have the potential to interact with ways all under their purview. For example, they'll have 4,000 residential apartments as part of this. They'll have retail. They'll have office space and everything in between. So now they could essentially.
I live very close to downtown. I love this music to my ears. Like, I'm happy for that.
Right. Great. But here's where it gets interesting, because now potentially for ostensibly perhaps the first time, a big data company like Google could now see the data connections between the actual food that you're eating from the supermarket in this little part of town, the doctor medical tests at the new little Google clinic that will no doubt, I'll bet every penny I have that they'll have a little Google powered clinic there.
Oh, no. Google Health is also revising the whole health record system. They're going to do a top down approach.
Hold on, I got to finish this point, because you'll have a gym and they'll know your exercise level and the amounts you're doing, the food you're eating, your physiological state, your concentration state, your sleep patterns. I guarantee you part of this apartment's going to have just a neat new little built-in sleeping smart mattress and smart toilet. So they're going to be able to see what goes in and what comes out, if you know what I'm saying, Anthony.
Okay.
Yeah. And
it's not intrusive.
Yeah, but all of that data combined is going to give them a whole new access of what you're going to buy next at a minimum.
I mean, this could be more than just buying, like literally.
I know. I'm just making a joke. Of course, there's much more than what you're buying. They know where you're going to go next, who you're going to message next, and the next thought you're going to have. That's my once they get every aspect, I mean, how many signals are there that they could ultimately collect from somebody, and the other 20,000 people around that person who are all engaging with them and with each other, so they know what all 20,000 people in this little campus are all consuming and digesting and excreting and sleeping and moving and feeling and responding and typing and accept all their emotional in real times, and then how they are engaging with each other. And then it starts to get super, super interesting.
Well, the real question that they are going to ask is the world deterministic and our minds deterministic or not, which
Right.
I personally find very interesting, but I wouldn't like to have it done on me.
Will implode.
So that's why I bring up the G-Town San Jose redevelopment project, because it's the opportunity to do something totally unprecedented from a data collection perspective. So anyway, there's I mentioned what's going on in the Gulf of Mexico, the Eye of the Fire, as it's called, and if you haven't seen this, you have to see it. It looks like the most incredible climax of a Transformers film or a Michael Bay movie. It's truly wild. The fire rages on the ocean surface near Mexico, and it looks like an eye of fire in the middle of the ocean, like Sauron, like something straight out of Lord of the Rings or something. It's unbelievable. And then we covered the fake science due to AIs, and now we know that it happens to be our friend Anthony on stage who's behind that. And then Todd, you had one about hybrid work at Apple.
Hey, Tyler. Yeah, I mean, it continues to make its way into the headlines. There was data this week that came from monster.com that said that 95% of people are considering switching jobs, and remote work is a key driver.
Oh boy.
And so data just came out at Apple that said that many, 58% or better are concerned that they will lose colleagues to resignation because they're being forced to come back to work just 3 days a week in the office, in early September, which Tim Cook and Apple had previously announced. And 3 out of 8 of them roughly said that they themselves are afraid that they'll have to resign because 3 days a week is too much to expect.
Yeah, as your headline says that I just retweeted, nearly 90% of respondents said flexible options are important to them. That's the new future. I think people have just gotten way too attached to all of this kind of freedom of their time during our peak COVID. Chris,
What happened is we got told
Apple sorry, go ahead, Chris.
we got told we were all going to die, so we reprioritized life, and now we got told we aren't going to die, and we're like, you know what? We still prioritize what we prioritized when we thought we were going to die.
yeah, simple as that.
Is
Ross?
Apple asking them to take pay cuts as well? Because a lot of the companies are offering pay cuts
Right.
and having to move outside of the headquarter regions, right?
Right. Some are, yeah. Well, I think they're doing that proactively because if they tell you, hey, if you move to out of the U.S., that's okay, that's fine and all, but we're going to pay you 25% less. And the reason we're going to pay you 25% less is because we can hire people in that other country for 25% less, so or 30% less. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. It only makes sense.
They still have to pay their tax in US, right?
Correct.
Even if they're physically
Yes.
off.
However, this is
okay.
important for Americans to know. Speaking as an American who lives outside of America, Americans do, as you just said, Cheryl, and as nearly everybody knows, America is unique in that if you keep your American passport, you will have to pay American taxes no matter what. And regardless of where you earned the money, actually, even if you earned it outside of the U.S. from, you were doing business, in, India, and Indians were paying you, you have to pay taxes in the U.S. on that. So, however, there's something important that most Americans do not know. In fact, I rarely meet anyone who does know this, which is Americans living outside of America for 330 days per year instantly get $100,000 tax discount off of their tax bill. It's called a foreign earned income credit, and it applies automatically. And at a 35% tax rate, that translates into 35% of $100,000 is $35,000 in your pocket off of your tax bill automatically for staying outside of the U.S. 330 days a year. You can still come back 30 days per year, and you can sleep 30 nights per year in the inside the geography of the sovereign U.S. territory. So essentially, $35,000 a year works out to very closely to $100 a day. You are essentially saving $100 per day by sleeping outside of the US. Or to put it another way, you are paying $100 per night just to sleep inside the continental US. Yes, Cheryl.
I have a comment. You already mentioned it's overseas source income, but for this case, they are still paid from the U.S. headquarters. It is not overseas source income.
You're right. It would, yeah. In this case, in the example that we're talking about, if you're working for an American company, then of course it's still domestically earned income. So yeah, of course, it doesn't matter in either way. But
isn't Apple registered in Ireland mostly?
True. Yeah, you could be an American and you could tell Facebook, "Hey, Facebook, hire me from the European office as my employer."
No, but the reason I brought this up, Tyler, was because this whole thing, which is a good thing from an American standpoint, about bringing American jobs home from a manufacturing standpoint and in an industrial standpoint. If you look a little further into it, and I don't think Apple is the actual one that has asked for the pay reductions. In fact, they've actually been kinder to their employees and said you don't need to take a pay reduction. I might be incorrect in that.
Correct.
But
However,
if you look at it,
Apple's really interesting because Apple first said we're coming back Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, simple as that. And then there was a mini revolt of a signature collection saying, "Not so fast, Tim. We don't want to come back." And then the CEO's response most recently, which was about 4 days ago, was it's on a you need to get approved if you want to have some special circumstance beyond the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday 3-day scheme. Everyone can work wherever they want, Wednesday and Friday, at the office, at home, whatever, at a Starbucks, up to you. And if it's not convenient for you to come in Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, as we have told everyone they need to do, then you can apply and we might grant you that exception. Todd?
So the interesting thing about this data is that it was a grassroots effort on a Slack channel,
right?
That very few people knew about at Apple, and nearly 2% of the employees responded to it.
Yeah. So speaking of Facebook, to limit the power and reach of the headline today from Wired is that to limit the power and reach of Facebook, U.S. regulators need to take citizens' data more seriously than they do content moderation or even antitrust. It seems increasingly likely that antitrust and content moderation tools aren't up to the task. Here's what we need to do next. That's coming from Wired about Facebook. And speaking of Facebook, somebody sent in this gem of an article that Facebook is testing Twitter-like threads feature on some public figures' pages. What do they mean by this? Well, you'll have to look at our Twitter account at TNATW, which is magically the first letters of tech news around the world, which you can see by looking at the title of this room. The first letters, TNATW, is also the Twitter account. If you can figure out how that happened, please DM us. We're desperately trying to figure out how that happened. So I just tweeted from the Tech News Twitter account that Facebook is testing a Twitter-like threads feature on some public figures pages. And it says, get your spool of yarn emojis ready. Social media consultant Matt Navarra first spotted this feature in action and shared several screenshots of how it looks, which now I just shared to you on our Twitter account. Facebook confirmed that it's testing the feature with a small group of quote-unquote public figures on Facebook for the time being. And what it appears to be is when you make a post, you know how you make a Facebook post, right? Okay, simple enough. It's like a tweet. But in Twitter, you can add additional tweets to the initial tweet, which we call a tweet thread. In Facebook, you can't do that. You have a post, end of story. Well, now some people, some public figures, when they make a post, it now says, would you like to add a post to this post you just posted? It says add another post to create a thread. Now you can add another post to any previous one to create a thread. All posts in a thread will have the same audience as the first post. Create, and then there's a big blue button that says create thread. So they're now bringing threads to Facebook. So you'll inevitably start seeing those soon, but that's the first I've heard of it. Richard Branson will try to beat Jeff Bezos to space on July 11th. And 9 days before Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin New Shepard capsule is scheduled to depart. And if that's not a it's bad enough that rockets look like penises, and now it's just becoming a whose is bigger kind of thing in a whole new way, and that it's just getting ridiculous between these two guys. Um, uh, then
Quick question on that one,
yes,
Tyler.
yes,
Can Branson, so remember the issue with the United States legislation and how Bezos was trying to compete with, what's his name, Musk,
yeah,
on the NASA contracts?
yep.
Now, I imagine those contracts would only be available to a U.S. entity with headquarters in the United States that is onshore and has done some work, or I don't know what the company, what the underlying requirements are. But would Branson and his company be able to get those contracts if they were to expand into that
Yeah, but
business or
they're
apply for
not
them?
even going into orbit. So it's not. I don't think NASA has
Right.
much of an interest in what
If they
Branson's doing.
did,
Yeah, but why? Why?
if
Because
they
he's
did in the
well,
future,
Musk isn't an born American either. I mean, he had to become naturalized. I'm sure if Branson wanted to, he could get an American passport too. So I mean, I don't think it's much of an issue.
from a company perspective, I'm asking, do you have to have the company headquartered in the United States to be able to apply for those contracts? That's what I'm asking.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure it wouldn't hurt. I don't see why you wouldn't. What you would
I was
do.
thinking about this. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple enough for Virgin to like set up a Delaware company just for their space stuff that they want to do with NASA, because NASA might say, "Hey, as a contractor, we have some kind of mandate that we only work with registered U.S. companies." That may or may not be true. I don't know, but if it is, it's not going to be that hard to comply with. I don't think.
I have some experience on this, Tyler. I believe you need to have U.S. Owners, because if you remember, Virgin Atlantic had an issue when they bought Alaska Airlines,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Yeah, and so and actually it's the same in other parts of the world too. I think Australia there was an issue with Virgin Atlantic there, and so yeah, you if you're doing anything sensitive in the U.S. related to aerospace, you have to have a certain percentage, I think a majority owned by Americans, not just registering your company, it has to be owned by Americans.
Now, the only
Yes.
So
reason I brought it up, Tyler, and I don't want to waste time for you, is because I see Bezos competing, and then Virgin is doing a completely separate thing, but I don't see them as not having the ability, the financing capability in the future to try and compete, or others coming in. So I see this whole thing with NASA and Musk's love for each other having to change in the future, and a competitive landscape forming where this is going to change, and Musk might not become stay the blue-eyed boy of NASA for a very long time. That's why I brought it up.
so I
I
wanted to weigh in
I
really
think he
quickly,
will. Yeah, go ahead.
simply because when I think about this, and maybe this is something that we could spin off into a separate room, because when I think about the last like 50 years or so that NASA has been, or that we've been in space, or more than that, and all the products that have come out of research development that that are byproducts of the space race, possibly that's why I'm thinking about maybe the same way that you are, Faraz, as all of these different billionaires get involved in this, maybe they're thinking tangentially about the space race or the Mars race, right? It would be an interesting thing to sort of look at, like why are they all doing this, and what is it that they're really thinking about in the longer term? I don't know if anybody else is thinking around that
I'm pretty
same
sure
way.
money's involved. I'm pretty sure these billionaire guys.
Yeah. But is there something else
Yes,
other than
top of it.
like who can get there first? Like what are I would love to sort of think about, like, what are the products or the byproducts of
Well,
getting to Mars, and what are the other I mean, when you think about like Tang came out of it, and like mattresses and all of these different products that came out of
Tang.
you know what I mean? I'm just thinking about, like, I always go to that first.
It took me a minute to
Also,
remember what you were saying. So for the non-Americans, because I don't think Tang did Tang become international? I don't think it did.
I don't know.
There was an orange.
Freeze dried ice cream.
Yes, it was an orange powdered drink that apparently the astronauts used. And so Tina said one of the things that came out of all of our space efforts was Tang, which because it's this weird thing that Americans think that Tang has some connection to outer space because we saw all these commercials telling us that Tang was being used in outer space. Anyway,
Well, no, what they want are giant contracts with the U.S. government,
well, more than
which
that,
SpaceX has, and
right?
Bezos wants, and
Uh,
others want.
Yeah.
So,
but
yeah.
check this out.
Let's not forget, the favorite topic of this room sometimes, Starlink came out of the SpaceX, right? I mean, just have to look down and back to the Earth. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do from space that help Earth, right? I mean, Starlink being a good example, which is an offshoot of SpaceX for sure.
Okay.
So then for me, the big one is also resources. I mean, all the minerals and things that we need on Earth, as we start running out of them, or it gets hard to mine them. I mean, asteroid mining will be a big one down the line as well.
So hold on. You just said the magic word Starlink, so I have to share this article that I just tweeted from the Tech News Twitter account, and you have to see this photo of what might be Chris here on stage with his a California Highway Patrol tickets a driver with a SpaceX Starlink dish bolted to the hood of his car. And the guy's driving down a road
That's a good one.
on a California highway with a Starlink satellite dish bolted to the front of his Toyota Prius. A California Highway Patrol officer pulled over a vehicle on Friday that had a satellite dish bolted onto the hood of the car. The dish appears to be an antenna from SpaceX's Starlink service, which rolled out in October with the beta program. CHP told CNBC that the motorist received a ticket for a moving violation. A California Highway Patrol officer pulled him over and he said, "Sir, I stopped you today for the visual obstruction on your hood. Does it not block your view while driving?" And then the motorist replied, "Only when I make right turns."
He
So
should have
Tyler,
put
you
it
have
on
to say
top.
that. You have to say that with the
What?
accent. It's only when I make right turn.
yeah, oh yes, with the appropriate redneck accent.
Why don't you put it on top?
Yeah, why didn't he put it on top of the car? That's a great question, Cheryl. Because he's an idiot is the answer, clearly. But
American have the right.
Yes, it's my goddamn right to bolt this thing on my car. My granddaddy lost an eye at the Battle of the Bulge. So, speaking of why, to your question, Tina, which is actually a good question, like why are the three of the richest people in the world all interested in racing into space? That seems a little odd, right? Seems a little strange. What a weird coincidence, right? But
Yeah,
here, I know that's the core of your question. It is a weird coincidence. And so why is that? And maybe they know something that we don't know clearly, right? Because if we were the richest people in the world, maybe we would be interested in going to space for some reason that we don't currently understand. Here's what I think is going on.
They can't be that bored.
Right. I do happen to know that the Department of Defense and the American government has incredibly deep pockets, and they are notorious for way overpaying for things, like ridiculously, insanely way overpaying. $1,000 for a screw on a satellite, or it's just ridiculous
But Tyler, this
money.
is Prescott, and we were trying to crack down on that pretty well.
Right. Now, here's what I think's going on.
Money.
Tina, hold on. Here's what I think's happening. I think that at some point, when you get to the upper 0.0000001%, and you join the top 10 richest people club, you start getting lunch requests from everybody on the planet, including people from the likes of NASA. And NASA says, "Hey, have you ever thought about maybe doing a rocket company? Because we could sure use more geniuses like you, building more rockets. And by the way, we got plenty of money." And I think it turns into a game of like when you were growing up as a kid and there was that one super wealthy person in the neighborhood and you could go mow their lawn and they would pay you $100 to mow their lawn. And you're like, holy shit, is this person an idiot? They don't understand. Like, I'd mow the lawn for like $5 and yet they'll pay me $100. I honestly believe it's like the rich person at the end of the block telling you, "Hey, you want to make $100 for mowing my lawn once a week?" And then as a billionaire, you're like, "Sounds good to me. I think we could do that. That sounds like a fine deal." And because I have friends who have been approached by the Department of Defense and have asked them to create projects that the Department of Defense would like to see created, because they have particular problems and they believe there are particular solutions, but they themselves are in no position to create them themselves. So they start having these meetings with people that they feel are capable of creating their solutions. And the Department of Defense and the government, are capable of funding those solutions, but they're not able of creating those solutions. I think that comes into this in some capacity.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
I have a question.
That still does not explain why this guy bolted this thing on the front of his car. What's up, Cheryl?
Yeah, you see,
except that he's an
Elon
idiot.
Musk,
Yes.
Elon Musk is working on this Starlink that may bring goodness to internet to those with no access, right? Why can't Richard and Jeff just come together with the project to bring
Cheryl.
electricity and Starlink to the
But
world?
Cheryl, but here's my point: is that
Come
when
on,
the government,
collaborate.
when NASA had lunch with Elon Musk, and they said, "Hey, Elon, have you ever thought about, putting satellites all over the planet to cover the entire planet with Wi-Fi? Because we, as the government, would love to see that happen with an American company, so we can get that sweet, sweet, juicy data." And Elon says, "Oh, really? Well, do you think you could help me get those satellites up into space?" And they said, "How much do you need, big boy?"
Well,
And
the
he's
FCC is also subsidizing Starlink to the
this is
tune of
exactly
tens
my
of
point.
billions of
Is that
dollars.
it's
So
not just
I
Tyler,
want
Elon.
my product
Yes,
subsidized too.
880 million.
Tyler,
880 million is the figure.
Tyler,
yeah.
I think.
I
Oh,
just
hey,
want
it's
to.
Lindsay over here. I just wanted to say something to that, Tyler. Like, I think actually you're giving the billionaires too much credit. To be honest, I think that
I'm not giving
I
them
don't think
credit.
you're.
Tyler,
I'm very specifically not giving them credit. I'm giving the credit to the Department of Defense. I'm giving them the credit for proposing it. And
Tyler,
previously,
this is
it was assumed that
NASA's different
it
than
was the
DoD, brother.
billionaires. Yeah, go ahead,
Ty-
Irwin, and then we'll go Prescott.
yeah, Tyler. This is an age-old story. If we go back in history and look at Howard Hughes, he was one of the guys that the government did come to him to do certain
Precisely.
things that they were not able to do.
Right.
So this is not something new that our government does. This is something where the money people that can afford to do this and the contracts that are available, the government will come out and ask.
Yeah, and very we know this actually. There's other more recent evidence of this in the case of Anduril, who just raised a huge round, which is Jesus Christ, Palmer Luckey, who created Oculus, sold it to Facebook for $2 billion, and his company now is providing the most cutting edge technologies to the Department of Defense, namely the border between America and Mexico, where a wall was attempted in some places. It was realized this wall thing's a bit more trickier than we had first assumed, and now Palmer's down there with drones and doing all kinds of crazy new technologies defending the southern border at pennies on the dollar. And now Palmer just raised a new monster round. His new company's now at them with the most recent valuation is now over $5 billion. He's well on his way to becoming one of the next mega tech companies, and he's now going international as part of this new fundraising because the government, again, it is not in the space. They needed somebody like Palmer to make that company that they can invest in and can be an ideal customer for. Another really interesting example is, what was it? I had another, it'll come to me. Sorry, go ahead, Prescott.
Google. Didn't CIA fund Google? In-Q-Tel
Perhaps.
funded Google.
I'll think of a great example in 1 second. Go ahead, Prescott. You were chiming in?
Yeah, just going to say that NASA is not the DoD. You know, you're saying like
Yes,
that's the DoD is
correct.
influencing space decisions. Like, not really. I mean, there are certain things, but the launch vehicles, that's a NASA decision, right? That's
Yes,
totally different bureaucracy.
correct.
What I will say is pulling a page from DEF, Defense Entrepreneurs Forum. I like their term, the virtuous insurgency. There are those of us that are fighting the bureaucracy, trying to overcome the hurdles, and removing as many roadblocks as possible as we try to deploy better ways to get funding. The problem is with the system, it's just become so bloated that it takes 3 to 5 years to get on a contract. And that's not necessarily just a DoD problem. That's a congressional problem.
Yep.
When you have to go what's called POM for funding, and you have to say, hey, I know what I want to buy in 3 years, and let me go advocate for it now.
Yep.
And then the legislative liaisons go and take that to the Congress people and say, hey, please give us this money. But in a field, as you know, Tyler, in a field like AI or anything cutting edge on tech, how could you possibly predict what you're going to need to buy in 3 to
Right.
5 years? It's
Yeah.
impossible.
You've got
So
to,
one of the things that we're doing
whenever
in,
you,
in, uh, in
I just want to say, let's jump into
the,
your New York Times article, which is brilliant as well. Whenever you finish your point here, go ahead.
Totally. Yeah. I was going to say that one of the things that we're trying to do, and then we'll jump over that article, is we're launching something called Tradewind through the DoD's Joint AI Center, which is essentially an initiative that uses alternative methods of funding. We're creating essentially 5 new funding pathways within the DoD, and it's expediting that contracting time so that we can get money into the hands of a company, or a small business, startup, whatever, in ideally less than 60 to 90 days. So that is a huge innovation for just AI in the coming future. If anyone wants to check that out, take a look ai.mil or tradewindai.com. Moving over to the New York Times article, though, that I just sent to you. Let me go pull that back up. This is a article that just came out called "These Chinese Millennials Are Chilling and Beijing Isn't Happy." And it talks about young people in China that have set off a nascent counterculture movement that involves lying down and doing as little as possible. And so I thought that that was a really interesting article. Is essentially this whole 996 philosophy of working, 9 hours a day, or sorry,
From
9,
9
9
a.m.
a.m.
to
to 9
9
p.m.
p.m.
Sorry, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Excuse me, not 9 hours.
6 days a
6
week.
days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 6 days a week, as many employers in China expect. That is something that a lot of young people are like, look, we just don't want to do this. It's affecting our mental health. We're working too much, too long. No, thank you. And they're stepping away.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was really interesting that as soon
It
as they
is.
started trending on social media, the censors came in and they shut it down. And so that is an article worth discussing, I think, when you talk about cultural anthropology and
Yep.
just kind of the culture of Chinese people pushing back against the censorship and the Communist Party. And I think in another room, which maybe you were in, Tyler's, the gentleman had spoken up yesterday saying, look, we really need to differentiate. The Chinese people are not the problem. They're not the enemy.
Not
It
at
is the
all.
CCP. And it's an important language differentiator as we talk about these
Yeah.
things. The CCP is what is causing the problem. It's Xi Jinping and his circle of cronies of 350 people or whatever it is in influence there. So I just open that to the room for
2.2
dialogue.
million party members. But yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, we've talked about this. What in the Chinese characters, the words translate most directly into lying flat, and kudos to the New York Times on getting that actually correct, because most articles don't. They even use the words lying flat, which is the most accurate translation of the Chinese characters, and because they are laying flat on their backs, and there is a substantial subculture movement, just as you said, of people saying we've had enough of the 996. It's not sustainable, and it's in some. We have to imagine, not a coincidence that it's coming out of COVID, where similar things happening in the U.S. as well, where people don't want to go back to work at the lower paying jobs. We're seeing this is not a uniquely Chinese thing. It's just rather remarkable that it's also happening in China, because they're kind of not known for lying flat, where Americans, hey, wouldn't be that surprising.
Well, remember the theme we talk about here is even Jack Ma,
Correct.
got clipped. So like it's the saying, and we learned this here is the tall grass gets cut, right? So
Right.
you don't want to be the tall grass.
Well, that's a simultaneous, similar, and perhaps very related point, which is Jack Ma is sort of the most high profile entrepreneur and business person in China. And so when when the IPO, which was set to be the world's largest IPO in financial history, was about to happen with Ant Financial, and then that got iceboxed, 86, put in the deep freeze, then it was reported that Jack Ma was lying low, lying flat. And so if Jack Ma's lying flat, well, then all of a sudden, many of the other incredibly big, successful tech entrepreneurs, also from, for example, TikTok's co-founder, also decided he wanted to lie low. And then recently, the founder from Meituan, the largest food delivery system, now is lying low. And now, why are all of these very high-profile superstar entrepreneurs now lying low? And if you're, kind of business icons are lying low, yeah, then why the hell should I, as some guy working at Starbucks, not lie low too? Like, what, let's just all, it kind of gives you permission in a sense, culturally.
And Tyler,
Yeah.
the image on that article is profound, right? Like
Yeah.
we can talk about this too, but if you go look up that article,
Yeah.
that to me was like, when they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, that
Yeah.
definitely was. It's like, here's this young guy lying down in this beautiful serene setting, kind of like a bridge out into the fog. And it's just very profound of saying like, look, just take a break for yourself. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that our culture has certainly latched onto in
Yep.
recent years, saying, look, your
Yep.
mental health is important. We want to discuss these things.
Yeah.
Many times in China, they can't even talk about it.
Right. And by the way, there's also, Japan did this, Cheryl, and if Tomoko or another one of our Japanese friends might be on stage, can confirm, because this started when I was living in Japan at the precise same time that I was living there. This new precisely nearly identical subculture started coming up, that which was termed the Arubaito culture at the time, which was basically the gig economy before the iPhone even came out. They started this concept of the gig economy, which is I'm going to go work 3 hours a week here and 5 hours a week there and do part-time jobs everywhere. That is what the premise was, which is gigs. It's gigs economy. But then there's a new article with a new name for this phenomena in Japan now called NEET, N-E-E-T, which Cheryl shared with us by the seashore about a week ago. And NEET stands for No Education, or
Employment and
employment
training
or
or
training.
training.
Yeah, none of the above. I'm not doing jack shit, is what it stands for.
But
Yeah,
Tyler, it's not new. It's 20 over years
right.
old.
It's still old, but it's essentially a new naming, a new branding of the Arubaito culture. Arubait in German means like work, so it's this Japanese um, twist on a Germanic word, this word arubaito. But yeah, it's essentially a modern modification, a modernification of the arubaito culture. Is now called NEET, N-E-E-T, no education or experience or training. And they just don't want to be part of the workforce in the same old way anymore. And it seems like China's getting on board, and seems like America's getting on board, and people are starting to realize, you know what? This whole consumer economy isn't all it's cracked up to be. I just went through COVID, and now I'm reassessing. And as Chris said, I readjusted my values, facing my own potential mortality. And now I realize I'm not going to die. And you know what? It doesn't matter, because I already made this deep change within myself that just rings true. And I now no longer care what my former schoolmates think. If I'm the next Richard Branson, I'm gonna enjoy the rest of my days here on the planet and do with them as I see fit. And I think that's why it's happening in a more global kind of way. And it's interesting to see the subtle differences in how it manifests itself in the lying low culture, or the NEET culture, or the let's chill the fuck out California culture, or whatever. But we must, by the way, give credit to the Thais for really pioneering this, by the way, because the Thais have been
Oh,
chilling
absolutely.
out since time began. So
I see you've been doing an extended case study on that too, Taylor.
it's not a coincidence I ended up here, but the Thais are the Zen Buddhist masters of chilling the fuck out. They have absolutely mastered the art of chilling out. Yeah, Anthony?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm just laughing along.
Yeah. Okay. So thank
And
you
by
for
the way, Tyler,
yeah.
if you have interest in this topic, I'm going to host a session on October 1st. You're welcome to follow me on
Sure.
LinkedIn, and I'll post on it about there. But it's basically about China and their meddling in global politics and what we can do as a nation to sort of circumvent their incursions into Africa and South America at the moment.
Interesting. So I did follow you, but like 10 minutes ago. Anyway, speaking of not chilling out and Elon Musk, here's all you need to know. Now the headline coming out that Elon Musk eyes an asteroid worth about $700 quintillion. That's the exact words in the article, by the way. I didn't make that up. Elon Musk eyes asteroid mining of 700 quintillion worth of space gold with NASA. And again, it was a little lunch with NASA, and NASA said, "Hey, Elon, how does 700? You think 700 billion sounds cool? Huh? How about 700 quintillion?" And Elon said, "Say what?" And they said, "Yeah,
Yeah,
it's an
yeah.
asteroid with gold,
Fuck
baby.
their
Let's go get this thing, baby."
fuck their statement. That's their true end goal. Is and this is interesting. I've looked into the economic theories behind this and market pricing. I mean, since up until now, at this point, these natural resources on our planet is finite and limited. So hence there is a value behind it. What's going to happen when these billionaires start mining from other planets and bring it back to our planet, or will they set up other exchanges or monetary values on other planets? How will that look like? I mean, once you start mining from other planets and bring it back here, then you're going to increase the supply and the price will go lower.
Yep. And then next thing you know, gold's not a scarce commodity at all, and there's
Right.
the whole script gets flipped.
Yeah, so I was thinking not necessarily gold, but things like lithium, all the minerals we need for or rare earth metals we need for, and they're called rare earth, right? So all the stuff we need for electric cars, batteries, So I wouldn't necessarily think of just gold, but I think as the population grows and we want to electrify the whole planet to clean energy, I think there is a value there to go after the rare earth metals.
Yeah.
The price would stabilize somewhat. It wouldn't be like gold, where it's just like, well, we have Bitcoin now anyway. That's the new gold. So
There's another follow-up article that I just DM you, Tyler.
Okay. About what?
Same.
About
Startup gearing up to do this mining,
yeah.
asteroid
It's not.
mining.
It's not just a one headline story. And then somebody sent
This
in.
is when you wish you had a Fornov here, right? Like, because I know why gold's important. It doesn't corrode. It's a great engineering material, but why? Like, why now, right? Like,
Yeah.
something's got to be about the gold that's very valuable besides those key factors.
Quintillion. Who's going to be the first quintillionaire? It sounds like a rapper name or
But
something.
that doesn't
Quintillionaire.
matter if
Yeah.
I'm lying low and I have my kids and I've decided that what's important is that my kids, right? So like something's got to be very valuable or useful that we haven't really considered. And I'll shut up.
That's right. So there's
what about using gold for everything else? I mean, there was a time when steel was very scarce and probably very expensive, or iron, making swords and stuff. What if I can have a gold plated shower head like Donald Trump or something? Everyone can have one, right? You can push it down to everyone.
Well,
Like,
I'm
and
more
again, this
saying
is
like
all the
I'm more
different
saying like
metals, not just gold. Like,
I
it
didn't mean
happen
to
to
speak over you, but what I mean is
platinum,
like
etc.
if like gold was critical for quantum computing, I would totally understand it. But it's like, this is a material we've had for forever. We've used it for thousands of years to store value, and we now have this digital store of value. So why gold now is kind of my question.
Well, speaking of current affairs, there's a new 4K capable drone on massive sale. And why is this interesting? Well, bear with us for 1 second as I get this sucker open. Hold on here. Where did it go? Where did you go? Where did you go? Is this you? There you are. Capture cool aerial shots in 4K with the new Stealth Dragon. I know this sounds like an ad. Bear with me. It's not. The Stealth Dragon 240 headless FPV drone on sale for 109. By the way, an FPV drone is a special type of drone, which DJI just came out with one for like $1,000, where you put on a headset, and as the drone flies, you feel like you're flying because you're not looking at your phone. You're in like a VR, like your head is mounted to the top of the drone and you're buzzing around. So you control it as if you're flying. And so this one, it's called the Stealth Dragon 240 headless FPV first person view drone on sale for $119. That's ridiculous. And it seems unbelievable. And of course, what's interesting about this and the fact that Mashable is promoting this is this now, these FPV drones are far, far, far more accurate and usable as a militarized drone, which is, we've been reading headlines. For those who don't know, if you don't join us every day, welcome to Tech News Around the World. We've been covering stories from particularly the parts of India near Pakistan and near the Kashmir area, where there are now drones that are coming over the Jammu Air Force Base that blew up part of the Air Force Base on the first visit. And then there's been drones revisiting every day since. And now India says they're now coming up with a strategy to combat these drones. Israel says they have a new laser to shoot down these drones. America says they have some new contraption that they haven't really explained the details of how it can combat a whole swarm of drones. And the whole point is, we now realize we are now living in a new world where drones, these commercial, consumer drones, will now be militarized. And that's why this headline of a $100 FPV drone, first person view drone, is incredibly concerning. It has a 4K camera on the front of this thing. So this is like incredibly keen camera footage that one can take with this thing. And there was a headline last week that the FAA, the Federal Air Administration of all air issues is, which is all the airplanes and everything. That's the FAA falls is kind of where anything that goes in the sky comes under the jurisdiction of the FAA. And now the FAA is now saying, as a hint, they didn't mention it, that they precisely why, but now all of a sudden magically there's a new ruling that all drones of all sizes all need to be registered, and you as the operator also need to be registered, of any drone of any size, no exceptions. Because hint, because drones are now militarized, and instead of a school shooting, you're going to have a drone shooting or a drone bomb dropping and it's going to get wild, because now people could do drone type things and have a much better chance of getting away with it, as the people did at this Jammu Air Force Base, a week ago. So, and that was just a couple of drones. Wait until people start buying, dozens of these things and linking them together, as is rather trivial to do. And now you have a drone army. You could have 100 drones all doing coordinated attacks on things. And that is going to happen because the economics just make sense. They are far, far, far cheaper than rockets, and potentially far more damaging, and certainly far more accurate. And there's even reports that, and we had somebody who was in the know in our room, that you can have drones with facial recognition built into them in regard to their targets, and they can even search, as we had a headline yesterday that drones are being used to search for very specific types of asteroid debris or meteorite debris, and using the camera, these 4K cameras, well, it can do the same and search for a particular human target based on their face, and it could go searching for them for weeks and months and ostensibly years until it finds that person. And when it does, go take care of them. So it's a whole new interesting world of drones. I imagine we might even begin to see all of these drones as soon as we get. Here's what's going to happen. Knowing the common law of there are a lot of idiots in the world. This is the headline. There's a lot of idiots in the world, and particularly there's a particular plague of idiots in America. And because of this, some idiot is going to use a drone in a very sensational way, like a school shooting. And as soon as that happens, we're going to ban drones in the U.S. because the drone company, the biggest U.S. drone company, Parrot, actually that's a French company. And then there's a Japanese company, and then there's DJI, who's the really big player, is Chinese. That we don't even really have a big drone company in America for these consumer drones. So God help that company, because they are not politically powerful. Because as soon as a drone gets used in the U.S., bye drones for consumers in the U.S.
Tyler,
Yes.
the flaw in your logic is once we add guns to drones, then we can't ban them. So we can't ban guns. So
Ha!
armed drones, we
Clever,
are not allowed to.
American legal workaround right there. You can't take my drone away. It had a gun on it.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Hey, Tyler.
That's
And I
Hey,
need,
Tyler. This,
as a militia, I have a right to drones because Thomas Jefferson promised me.
Right. It's Independence Day. The founding fathers had
Happy
armed
4th of
drones.
July,
We all know
everybody.
that.
I got a automatic rifle on my drone now.
hey,
Yeah.
Tyler. This is
Evan, that
John.
American brain of yours,
Go ahead,
Evan,
John.
and
I spoke to the CEO of the DIJ,
DJI.
the big drone manufacturer, about 7 or 8 years ago, and I said, when these are weaponized, what's your plan for how to deal with the regulation, registration, licensing, banning, et cetera, et cetera? And his response was 3 words: not my problem. And the thing that I did at that time is I looked into patenting some IFF for drones, which is identify friend or foe, only to discover that those patents were already held. But there are already technologies for anti-drone capabilities in a domestic context, and the question is, when they're weaponized and they're so ubiquitous, so easy to fly, carrying increasing payloads, it's almost inevitable that it's headed right for what you characterized. And what is the regulatory framework going to look like? And is IFF going to be good enough?
Okay. Well, on that happy note, Facebook, and I'll pause to see if somebody is burning with the headline, because there's, by the way, about 12 hours of tweets of people sending in fantastically cool headlines, and I now have about 20 that I've picked out to share, but I want to see if somebody's burning with one they want to share on the stage before I do that.
Yeah, this is Danish.
Hey,
I've
Donish,
got one, and
go.
it's the worst. It's the COVID stuff, so I
Let's do it.
apologize. I know
Fun
that's not
stuff. Yeah.
fun stuff. So, we had reported on tech news around the world last week that Angela Merkel had gotten an mRNA booster
Yes.
after the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Yeah.
Today, I've tweeted it to you guys. Today, Germany comes out and actually does a general guidance for all people of all ages that are approved in Germany to get the mRNA booster now. So it's already happening. And by the way, this is on the heels of J&J, without providing actual evidence yet, claiming that their vaccine works well against the variants.
Right. So
And
wait,
I
yeah.
haven't seen.
That's a little mental friction happening, because the manufacturers are saying, actually, you're probably pretty good here, right? With if you get the J&J or you get 2 of the mRNA jabs, you should be good to go with this whole new variant. And then Germany saying time to get a booster.
Yeah, Germany's saying now it is actually a recommendation, and they are telling everybody now. And you guys know, employers in Germany work very different than employers in the U.S. Employers in Germany, because of the way their healthcare system is set up, they're actually sort of requiring, and the sort of is you can leave your job and then not have this problem, but they do require that their employees actually go and get. So everybody in Germany, essentially, who is an adult, is going to go and get the second booster mRNA. And specifically, they didn't say you have to get a second shot of J&J, which was something that people were asking about. People were saying, hey, should we mix and match? They specifically said get an mRNA vaccine as a second dose, and it is safe, which is the first question. And the first question was, will it be safe to take the Pfizer vaccine or the Moderna vaccine after you've taken the J&J? So they must know something we don't know. And my prediction, and that's what I put in the tweet, is that the U.S. government will recommend that all people who got the J&J vaccine, or if they came from outside the U.S. and they got the AstraZeneca vaccine, go and get a second dose of an mRNA vaccine, but they're going to do it when it's too late in traditional US style. And then in one of the tweet replies, Dr. Graham Walker, who started MD Calc and is an emergency physician, actually let me know that actually in the US, we're not even tracking whether somebody who was vaccinated with the COVID vaccine, whichever type, unless they're hospitalized, we're not even tracking whether they got the vaccine or not. So this is the funny thing. So if somebody comes to the emergency room and they're COVID positive and they leave, we're not actually tracking whether they were vaccinated or not at a high enough level. And this is something that then I asked him more questions about on Twitter, and you guys can see the whole exchange. And he linked to another article where this is happening across the nation. So we're actually doing such a crappy job of knowing whether these vaccines are working at scale. And I think that's really scary. That is, we talk about, sequencing the entire thing following the Delta variant. I'm in Missouri. We are going through probably the worst Delta variant outbreak in the US right now. And we're just not even tracking this. And the Delta
It's just
variant, I'm
starting.
telling you right now, it's just starting.
Donish, did you not hear me say 2 and 3 weeks ago here in Thailand, pull up the chart on COVID cases or deaths in Thailand, and you will notice we didn't have COVID until March, like a month ago, 2 months ago. 2 months ago, Thailand did not have COVID of any kind until 2 months ago. We had incredibly small cases of it. In fact, we were the first country outside of China to get it. And Bangkok is the most visited city on the planet. And Phuket is the 9th visited city on the planet. We're one of the only countries that have 2 in the top 10. We might be the only country other than the US. And we're next door to China, and we had it before. We were the first place outside of China to have COVID. Despite all that, we only had, until 2 months ago, a total of 60 deaths out of 90 million people. And we managed it. We controlled it. We had no problem controlling traditional COVID at all. Go look at the chart. You'll see a completely flat line until 2 months ago, and then Delta came and just kicked our ass. totally kicked the ass of somebody who had no problem controlling traditional COVID. Alpha, I guess it's called Alpha now, right? And
Delta Plus.
right. So now I'm telling everybody, and it's not just Thailand, it's Taiwan and other countries like Vietnam who had done a really nice job of managing traditional COVID are all now getting the shit beat out of us by this new Delta version. And so what I said, because I'm from America, holy shit, when this thing gets over to the US, you guys are fucked. Like totally
We
fucked.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
And
one
like
thing
I
I
said,
will
I was
say,
in.
one thing, Chris, I was going to
Here's
say is,
why. Here's why. Because here in Thailand, every store you walk into, when I say every store, I mean every fucking store requires you upon entry to sanitize your hands, wear a mask, and take a temperature before entering any business. Always, every store, always sanitize hands, wear a mask, and get a temperature check. Always, everybody, every store, and everyone's wearing. 100% of people are wearing masks all the time, even the ones who have been vaccinated now. And it's just accepted. We don't have any complaint about it. We're more than happy to do it, and we are struggling with Delta. So good fucking luck, you fuckers who won't wear a mask.
Yeah. Do you want to
well,
know
what's
what the
the
news
Karen?
said this
What's the
morning, Tyler?
Huh?
Do you want to know what the news said this morning?
What's
I've been
that?
up since like 5 a.m. in the U.S.
Go ahead.
and it's all they're talking about is you should see how packed the airports are. It's
Oh
amazing.
my God.
Everyone's going out. I mean, it's a
I was
nightmare.
in Vegas last week, man. I was there for a healthcare conference. I'm the only person in healthcare wearing a mask.
Yeah, the
You
I'm
know
the
what?
only
three cities:
You
I'm
know
the only
what?
person in the
Vegas,
casino wearing
Anaheim,
a
and
mask.
You know what?
Orlando.
Chris,
American always say that
my grandpappy fought in the Battle of the Bulge, so I don't have to wear a
And no,
goddamn mask, son.
and the
no
weirdest thing,
American is
guys, is I
complaining
am
about
typically that
overpopulation, so
demographic. I'm
trying
usually the
to
America guy.
Hang
yeah.
on, one at a time. Sorry, just one
Hey,
second at a time.
Chris. In
Yeah,
the middle of
was it
May,
Cheryl? Were you saying something? Oh.
weren't we at
Yeah, I'm saying that many Americans are complaining about overpopulation, so now it's time to trim.
oh, Jesus.
Ouch.
I was just gonna say that this is Danish again. I just wanted to make sure that this got out.
Yep.
I can't give medical advice on tech news around the world,
I
but this
can.
is
Hold on, I'll
completely
do it for
off the
you.
record.
Go
This is
get
off the record.
Let Tyler do
vaccinated.
it. Let Tyler do it.
Hold on.
well,
My name is Tyler Crowley. I'm telling you, go get vaccinated, you dumbass. That's the official
well,
statement.
well,
Yeah.
Tyler, I would add to that official statement. If you've gotten the J&J vaccine, again, this is not medical advice. I got to be careful with my license. But I was going to say that, if I got the J&J vaccine or my family member had gotten the J&J vaccine, I would tell them right now, or AstraZeneca for our international friends, I would tell them right now to go get an mRNA booster.
Yeah, but
So that's
Donish,
as much as I can say.
I got a PhD from YouTube University. Okay. I don't know where you got your stuff from.
Or Facebook.
Call me
or
Dr.
WhatsApp.
Google.
Hey, Chris. In the middle of May, weren't we both at LSI? And wasn't it crazy how like no one wore a mask and we're all in med tech?
I actually was lucky enough to not be down there.
Oh, you
But
presented
yeah.
virtually. Okay.
Yeah, I had to do virtual. We're a startup. We couldn't afford the Ritz Carlton. But
I'm a
yeah,
startup
no, I
too.
mean
I had to
it's
show.
amazing, and I feel
I
terrible
burned
saying
like
this, but
10,000 that whole week. It sucked.
my
Hey guys,
CMO was not wearing a mask. He Dr. Danish. He's right there at Wash U. You know, he's in the ER at a lot of the hospitals in Missouri. You know, and like it's really the social pressure, man. People look at you and you're like, shit, I look like an idiot. Everyone's not wearing a mask. I'm gonna take the plunge too, and
Yeah.
If
it's
we've
just a
learned
can
weird
I
thing.
anything
ask a
in this
question? You guys,
pandemic, go ahead,
can I
Cal.
ask you guys in the US just a question? Because we're watching the NBA, my son and I, right? And the stadiums are full, right? Like the Wisconsin, right? Absolutely full.
Yep.
Are people tested before they go in? Like,
No,
No.
Oh
No.
hell no.
oh, and no masks.
There's like a
But
no.
vaccine
Hey,
zone
the
Cal,
absurdity.
Cal, what's the problem, baby? We're having a good time. We're just trying to watch a little
That's
The,
right.
the,
basketball.
That's
they
right.
do have
Why
the
you got to come up in
vaccinated
here with your
seating
Delta?
section.
What is this? What are you talking about,
the,
It's
Cal?
not even
the
Delta. It's just
absurdity.
like
There were
American
24,000 people
exceptionalism.
packed in for the College
The
World Series
absurdity of
last week.
This is America, boy.
So,
the
Cal,
absurdity
We're gonna
If you
watch
walked
some
in,
basketball.
yeah, it was July 4th
the
weekend.
absurdity
All
of
right.
it
yeah.
all is that you're told to get vaccinated, but you're not, and
you're told, okay, only vaccinated people are allowed, but we don't have vaccine passports. There's no verification required. So it's like, okay, yeah, we'll trust you that you've been vaccinated to come to our event. And it's just absurd.
People are
I will say
lying.
that here,
Yeah.
Tina, one second. I was just going to say the one thing that's bothering me about this, though, is that, look, American behaviors are American behaviors. And, like, we can't change, I guess, at the underlying level, the things that make us Americans are perhaps sometimes good, sometimes bad. Who knows? But the problem here is that other countries are doing a much better job on the public health level of tracking what's happening. Look at the UK and how they initially responded. Some people will say it was not perfect, but I think most people will say it's not perfect. But we right now are seeing Germany come out and do this. I can tell you right now, the US will come out in about 3 weeks if we're lucky. And I'm predicting it right now. Then 3 weeks we're gonna come out and we're gonna tell all the people that got J&J to get the mRNA vaccine, like Pfizer or Moderna, whichever one is first available. And by that time, it will be way too late. And that's the problem. How are
Well,
people supposed to
But
trust us when we're being so bad about our public health?
but
Well,
but
this
you
is
guys
the
probably
thing.
know.
Can I say that here in America, did you not see the headline that J&J is the better vaccine for Delta variant? That came out as headline news recently, which is sad. It's sad. And the other thing is when the World Health Organization recently said like masks are necessary for this Delta variant, we're sitting here in America waiting for the CDC to confirm it, and that's taking way too long. If the, like there's
Yeah.
so much,
So
there's more news flying about the bacteria and all the problems with masks right now than there is about
virus.
the health. Yeah, it's very
But
interesting.
I think we
Donish,
understand.
I would just add when it came time to get the vaccine, when you signed up to the state portal, as I did, it all depended on what they jabbed in your arm that day. So I was lucky enough; I got Pfizer 1 and 2. My wife got Moderna 1 and 2, but they were also integrating J&J, and so it really was just the pick of whatever you have. So that kind of further complicates things. That if they say, well, you got to go back and get an mRNA booster, or go back and get Pfizer, Moderna, if you got Johnson and Johnson, people are going to say, I just got what you handed to me with the National Guardsman jabbed in my arm at the time. Why was that wrong, and why do I have to get it fixed?
This
See,
is
that's
why.
the thing. Like, we shouldn't be competing on brands right now, right? I think that's the whole problem we're having in the U.S. You guys are all working on brands, and also already realize that Andy Slavitt is already planning a third booster, right, for vaccines. That he mentioned this 2 months ago, I believe, and even the Moderna CEO, I think last year or earlier this year, mentioned that they're already predicting that they're going to actually need to have third boosters, even for the mRNA people. So something's going on. We don't know, but no one's mentioning the fact that any of these vaccines will again reduce the incidences of hospitalization. That's the most important fact that any of these vaccines should be marketing. But unfortunately, in the States, you guys are going on brands. And even in Canada, we've had the same problem. People don't want the Moderna vaccine after getting the Pfizer because they've been told so many times that Pfizer's better or whatever, right? So we've
This
So
is
we've
been
been
having a
Preston. I've
tough
got
So
a quick
time.
Heyman,
thing to add.
Heyman, I just want to be clear about something though. You made a comment, so I want to make sure I clarify.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is not about brands. This is about the fact that the J&J vaccine is
Right,
not covering Delta variant, and
right.
so people in German, like the German healthcare organizations have now done some internal studies, which is what this is based on, actual evidence that the mRNA vaccine as a second shot actually protects against hospitalizations and deaths from Delta, and specifically, Heyman, thank you for clarifying, Delta plus, which is the
Yeah,
other thing that's coming down the pipeline. I want to be sure that this is not about brands.
yeah.
AstraZeneca, and I'm just saying, the data says that Moderna and Pfizer, or the mRNA vaccines, are more effective, however you want to define effective, across every measure pretty much, than AstraZeneca and J&J. And so, I just want to make sure that people didn't get confused here. This is not about brands. This is
Okay,
about
we'll get.
specifically the modality.
Let's move on. We got but somewhat related, of course, is the vaccine passport thing that's just making incredible progress across the EU at the moment. Cheryl just shared a headline from Germany, from DW, my favorite publication in Germany, which stands for Deutsche Welle, or the German Wave. And although they are the best outlet in Germany, and the headline is about the new ID cards, more control, less freedom. Very soon, digital fingerprinting will be mandatory in German ID cards. So they're adding biometrics to all of their ID. The question is, will it make the cards more secure, or is it an invasive threat to German citizens' freedoms? Is the big debate happening in Germany in their main publication. And I imagine it's coming to, Germany and America are actually similar in some ways on these kinds of things. So it'll be interesting to see if we start adding the biometric stuff to the U.S.
Hey,
ID as well.
Tyler.
Yes.
It's MA. I
Hey,
just
May.
wanted to give you, hey, how are you?
Real good.
I just want to give you a heads up that I'm actually with a friend from Germany right now,
Yep.
and sure enough, they already have it.
Yeah.
So they're already putting in the biometrics. So, and because she's traveled to Netherlands, and she's actually pretty surprised, to Dr. Danish's point,
Yeah.
that the Dutch are sort of free without wearing the mask, but also Netherlands is doing mostly now Pfizer, the biotech, and Moderna. They're not even doing any of the others. They're just forging forward with just Pfizer.
So the article reads, the article starts like this with a quote saying it was a really creepy feeling, says data protection activist Lena Simon, describing the moment when she last visited the Citizens Service Center at her local town hall and they wanted her to take fingerprints. She was instructed to press the index fingers of both hands on the glass surface of a scanner. The idea was that the resulting fingerprints would be included in her new passport. However, she used a trick that she's not willing to share to spoil the scan. Lena is a member of the German organization called Digital Courage, which is committed to privacy and digital rights. So, did it work? Lena says she can't be sure, but what she does know, for the rest of the day, I felt awful. She says it is invasive when the state forces law-abiding citizens to allow their fingerprints to be taken. After all, she says, it's a tool ordinarily used by the police in criminal investigations. I don't understand why I should have to give the state access to my prints when I haven't broken the law.
I would just say, from the German perspective, hi everyone, out of Berlin, and I also love the Deutsche Welle, that in the end of the day, it doesn't matter if one activist is against this whole process, is because Germany at large is a country that obeys the law, and if the law becomes that we share the fingerprint, then that's what we will do.
Yep.
And that's what's going to happen.
Yep.
Tyler, Singaporeans' fingerprint are taken ever since we have an ID.
Yeah.
And it's very convenient because at the airport you can just press your ID and you can just go into without talking to the custom officer. It's just a gate, It's very convenient.
Yeah.
And when you come to Japan, they take your fingerprints too, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So what's the problem?
Thailand as well now, you have to do fingerprints when you arrive at the airport. But
it's a lot of convenience. Come on, trust me, a lot of convenience.
Yes, but Cheryl,
anybody who wants to go to Disney World has to do it.
Yeah,
it's
Cheryl,
any of the Disney properties anywhere.
Go spend a year in Texas, and then let's see how you feel about how Singapore does things, because these are two opposite cultures in terms of trusting governments, and the Singaporeans have no problem. Government says I need to put this thing in my rectum, and it's it's no problem. What's the problem? There's no problem at all. And then people in Texas,
very pragmatic. As long as it works and very efficient,
right? Hey, it's great. It's now I can jump on the train without waving my phone, and that's great and that's wonderful. But they're two completely different parts of the world with different personalities and how they relate to their government. And what you have, the issue is, and Sweden is related to this as well. Swedes trust their government. And that's why they had this really unique approach to their own way of handling COVID, because the government said, we're going to do it this way. And people said, yeah, okay, well, whatever you say, boss, it's just whatever, no problem. We don't resist. We trust the government that they did the homework. We don't have time to do the homework. You're the experts, not us. You made the decision. Great. We're going to follow it. No problem. Whatever you say, it's all good.
Well, the government also trusts the people in Sweden. There's a reciprocal arrangement, which we don't necessarily have here in the U.S. either.
Right. Well, they know that the people are going to follow the recommendation, so they are very careful with their recommendations, and they don't want to, burden them with something more than is necessary. And that's why they had this really interesting response. Where in America, you say, hey, everyone's got to stay in their house now, and good luck getting Texans to stay in their house. You go try that. Have fun.
That's
bad because you really have to use almost reverse psychology in order to have people do the right thing in specific spaces, because even if you say it's the right thing, they're going to call it the wrong thing. So it's like, don't do this, so you get them to do that.
Yeah,
And America
great
is
point.
notorious.
Great point.
America
No,
notorious
There's
because
just
yeah, they are
like going down.
they are yeah, what's the word I'm looking for? Contrarian. Like if a government says do X, a Texan will do Y. That's just the way it is.
I mean, I moved from New York to Austin to LA, and I'll say that every single thing that was forward in New York and LA was reversed in Austin and also in Tampa Bay. So I went Florida, New York, Austin, Texas, LA. And it was unfortunate because to this day, I've got about a dozen friends in Florida and a dozen in Texas, and it's literally night and day. And I think this is exactly why group projects fail. We're all part of these group projects that can't be on a unified front because there are people that will go against the grain on anything. So you almost have to dumb it down to a level that it makes so much sense that you'd be doubting your own intelligence to go against it, and we haven't done that yet. Even Clear in the airport and retina scans. So many of my friends and peers and business associates do not have Clear, and my mind is blown because they're missing flights or they're complaining about TSA. But if you go through Clear and you save that 30-minute to an hour and a half sometime wait just for the opportunity to do that alone, I don't know how much your time is worth, but if you're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for consulting and you're not taking private jets, like Clear is a perfect opportunity for you to do that. If you're worried about your rights and your scans of your eyes and your fingerprints, that's already out there. It's already done. You're not wiping down door handles when you enter and exit things. You're not looking at a phone screen all day. Like, it's done. So I think people really just need it dumbed down to a point that it's more digestible. And unfortunately, we're not there yet.
Okay, so some fantastic. I now have because people.
Can I just add an interesting
One
point?
second for us. While we are having these fantastic conversations, there are people in the audience and some on stage who are sending in fantastic headlines via the Twitter account at TNATW, short for Tech News Around the World, and I now have about 40 of the best of 400. So I need to get through these, but before I do, feel free to jump in, Faraz, and then I think Pre-Rock might have wanted to go in as well. Go ahead, Faraz.
So I'll just make it quick. Just in respect of this room, I think sometimes to see where the world is headed in terms of tech and everything, sometimes we should be looking at the sovereign wealth fund allocations and what they've been doing.
Yep.
And most recently, there's a paper that's come out on Bloomberg. Anyone can look it up. It's and I'm happy to tweet it out very shortly right after this. It highlights the Kuwait Investment Authority, which is the sovereign wealth fund of Kuwait, the longest standing sovereign wealth fund in the world, by the way. And if you look at the allocations and the inflows and how these sovereign wealth funds have risen through the pandemic, the rise of assets of these sovereign wealth funds, net sovereign cash flow intake is humongous. And if you look at the allocations that have been made for investments throughout the pandemic and are continuing to be expanded upon, it all shows artificial intelligence, robotics, healthcare, life sciences. So that kind of gives us an interesting fact as to where the sovereigns are looking at. I'll stop there. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. So some of my favorite ones that just came in, Renjant, as he's known for doing, sent in this fantastic one that what is RBI in India? The Reserve Bank of India warns against allowing big tech firms into financial services. And there it is, folks. That's the headline I've been waiting for about 3 months for, right? And let me explain. This is super. I'm ringing this cash register one more time. There it is. Because now this is it. Now they're finally being clear. This is what it's all about. The Royal Bank of India is now telling the government, let's not allow these big tech firms into fintech. No fintech for you. Get these big data tech companies out of our banking system. No, thank you. We don't want to compete with them because they will kick our ass like they're doing in other parts of the world, where these digital-based, AI-powered data analytic companies say, you know what? We kicked Hollywood's ass and the newspapers. How about these banks? They seem like idiots. Let's kick their ass too. And they are kicking the banks' asses. And that's why you got all these neobanks becoming mega unicorns left and right, and Stripe's worth $100 billion. That's one fintech company. And you got my buddy Sebastian over there at Klarna, now worth $46 billion. Worth more than all the banks in Scandinavia combined. And he's a little startup. See what I'm saying? So when the geeks start playing in fintech, the banks start shitting themselves, right? And so now you understand why the Royal Bank of India is telling the government it's time to stop big tech firms from going into financial services. And that's the headline from economictimes.indiatimes.com, from the India Times. Entry of big tech firms, Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Microsoft into financial services could present challenges in maintaining an inadequate balance in India. So again, the banks are telling daddy, hey, daddy, these big bullies are going to come and kick my fucking ass. Let's not do this, daddy. Can you please stop these geeks? These geeks are mean, daddy. That's the headline. And now we're finally seeing it. And by the way, America is now you know why these countries are now clamping down on these big tech companies. Because the banks, and by the way, what's this now? The American government is also clamping down on big tech, just as big tech's about to go into the medical industry. Oh, how interesting. I wonder if the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry and all, I wonder if they're telling the politicians the same thing that the banks are telling the Indian politicians.
Nope.
I wonder what happens when they understand tokenomic systems and get into blockchain and actually catch up to the speed and velocity.
So here's the headline from Royal Bank India warns against. I just love the honest transparency of this. Here it is. Finally, Royal Bank of India warns against allowing big tech firms into financial services in India. There it is. They said it, and they can say it. Mumbai, entry of the so-called big tech companies in financial services in emerging markets such as India could present challenging to regulators towards maintaining adequate stability and governance of the ecosystem, the Royal Bank of India said on Thursday. These big geeks are meanies. Let me just translate that for you. The central bank flagged monopolistic practices, antitrust issues, cybersecurity risk, and challenges around data privacy as the key concerns that could emerge. Never mind the fact that the fintechs all over Europe have not had those problems, but never mind that. Just don't worry about the reality there. Here's the quote: big techs offer a wide range of digital financial services of several advanced and emerging market economies, RBI said in its biannual financial stability report. While this holds the promise of supporting financial inclusion and generating lasting efficiency gains, concerns have intensified around the level playing field with banks, operational risk, too big to fail issues, challenging for antitrust rules, cybersecurity, and data privacy. Big tech is a term used for Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft that have market capitalizations ranging from between 1 trillion and 2 trillion. Yep, that's correct. And the RBI statement comes at a time when the Indian government has been embroiled in a tussle with big tech firms, most notably microblogging app Twitter, and Amazon, Google, and Facebook, WhatsApp are active participants in India's real-time payment network, Unified Payment Interface, called UPI. Both Amazon and Google have been enabled financial intermediary services such as loans and card payments on their payment platforms. And here's the last quote here. First, they straddle many different non-financial lines of business with sometimes opaque overarching governance structures, the central bank said. Second, they have the potential to become dominant players in financial services. Third, big techs are generally able to overcome limits of scale in financial service provisions by exploiting network effects. That's right. Let me translate that for you. They're going to kick our fucking ass, and you better stop them before they do. There it is. They said it. It's out in the open.
Why wouldn't they just adopt different, basically create a front runner that's their MVP and they build around it to get ahead? Because I remember when I was 16 years old, this small little company called PayPal was allowing me to make more money than both of my parents combined. And like, they have the opportunity now to refresh, restart, renew, and really like take a first mover advantage standpoint as opposed to being rejecting of adopting new technology and how fast it's moving. And it's not going to slow down. It's just going to get faster and faster, especially with things like Starlink. But that's a whole nother combo.
So just a reminder that Kodak did not miss out on digital film. They were actually leading the way in
True.
digital technologies. But
Facts.
unfortunately, as a company, they were unable to change fast enough for all these other startups to go and do what they needed.
Facts. And we were scratching our head. And by the way, there's somebody in the audience named Animesh Mishra, who I'm inviting on stage because he's from India and he's in tech, into blockchain and ad tech and stuff like that. So I will initial welcome to Tech News Around the World. What do you think about the little conversation we're having here about the Bank of India not wanting to welcome the big tech companies into the financial services in India?
Yeah, hi Tyler. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, great. So what has happened is that because of the social media biggies and so the pressure going on to them. So what the government has decided is that when it comes to data, and Reserve Bank of India is the Supreme Bank of India, which actually in a way controls the economy of India. So what the government has decided that Reserve Bank will have to set out principles and guidelines in terms of data, and they have to work very closely with the Minister of Information and Broadcasting to lay out the guidelines. So maybe in the next maybe month or so, we should be seeing that coming up, the guidelines.
Yeah. So
and one more point, Tyler, I want to make here, which has been like put under the carpet for the moment, is that while at one end Facebook and Twitter and everybody else is facing the heat, but somehow Facebook has agreed to most of the guidelines set by the Indian government.
Right.
But when it comes to Twitter, now unfortunately they have not been able to comply with the guidelines. So they're like playing a teasing game.
Yes.
Which the government of India is not ready to accept.
Right.
So I have messaged a tweet today, and if you read that out, it basically the Indian government has asked Twitter that we had asked you for these things,
right,
but you not complied with any of them.
Right.
So you have to basically give us show cause notice that why you did not comply.
Right. Or get out.
And yeah, that's right.
Right.
Because
to be honest, they want Twitter to get out.
Yeah, right now, that's the thing. They're saying either you follow what we are saying, you follow the IT guidelines prescribed as per February 2021.
Yep.
If you are not following that, this is not the place for you. Goodbye.
Right. And do you know why Facebook is actually very happy to comply, but Twitter's not? I can tell you why Facebook's happy to comply.
See, for Facebook, India is a big market when it comes to advertising.
Exactly. Right? And more so, they have financial ambitions of becoming a payment system.
Absolutely.
And that's why that's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. So yes, boss, you the boss. Whatever you say, boss, you want us to do, take off our shoes outside and jump up and down and spin around and act like a circus clown. You got it, boss. And Twitter is not planning to do financial.
Facebook.
Hold on, Cam. Hold on, Cam. Because Twitter is not trying to be financial services in India. So Twitter, it's not as juicy, huge of an opportunity as it is for Facebook. So they're not as careful about following all of India's demands.
Absolutely.
WhatsApp is part of Facebook too, right?
And the most funny thing, Tyler, is that the Indian government asked all the biggies, including Twitter, to come and have a face-to-face meeting.
That's right.
And the immediate response was that, no, this is COVID. We can't have a face-to-face meeting. We will have a Zoom meeting.
That's right.
Now, I'm just telling you how the teasing game is being played.
Oh, no. Anish, have you not been joining us every day for the past month?
Yeah, I have been, but off and on.
We've been following this in real time each day as it happens. Twice a day. Click on the title of the room. We meet 2 times every day, and we discuss India and Twitter 2 times every day.
All right. Okay. Great.
Not only that, but there's also like Nigeria. Like there's a thread about how like I think American companies
Russia
have
as
to send
well.
people on the ground in Lagos, Russia. We can't just sit in Silicon Valley and say we're going to do a Zoom call and talk to regulators. We're going to show up and represent.
Anish,
play the game in that country.
we had the live stream going when the Delhi sent 6 men in uniforms to
6 heavies, as Dave calls them,
to Twitter's HQ office in Delhi to have a little conversation, to ask them why had they put a little warning sticker on notification on top of the official government's Twitter account, and they didn't like that, and they sent people down to the office to knock on the door. There was a live stream happening that we tweeted out in real time. We knew they were there before Twitter knew they were there. That's how close we're following this.
That's great. Yeah.
So it's interesting to watch, and it also highlights this banking thing of the government. India's not dumb. India totally gets that these big tech companies are going to come in, and India realizes, you know what? It's probably better if we not let these big American tech companies take over our banks, take over our healthcare industry, as is now starting to happen in the U.S., and our education system, as they are now trying to do, as the big tech companies are starting to do in China, kind of have done in China, and all of our delivery systems and all of our e-commerce, because left unchecked, these big tech companies are just going to swallow up everything, and then you can't do nothing about it. Because once all of these big tech companies take over your banks and take over your medical system and your education system and your commerce, where the stores and the future and the delivery systems of all of this stuff, and then they start issuing insurance, good luck kicking them out, because then they'll turn back to you and say, who's kicking who out again?
Thing is, Tyler, I think what they probably learned from China is that, if you look at Alibaba or Pindu or Duo, CCP can just come in. They literally just, let them grow for 5 years, and they said, you know what, thank you very much. You got the data, we need it, get out. We'll take over from here, right? I think India pretty much learning from that. I think what's going to happen in India is that they probably want to follow between that, where, drive everything towards people like Reliance, Ambani, because they know they can control Ambani. Just imagine that, if a lot of it, that's why, Facebook, a lot of these guys are putting a lot of money into Reliance, because they know that that's where things going to head towards, because India can control Reliance, Ambani, because they can go take him into a room and say, you know what, if you don't listen to it, this is how we want, whether it's the e-commerce, social media, banking, fintech, whatever it is. If you don't, that's it. You're going to, so I think that's the kind of, they learned that from India. And I think that's where the model, it probably will head towards.
Yeah, you're right, Kiran. But my only question to the people out here is that why is Twitter behaving like this? Because it's a simple thing.
I can tell you.
If it's a law of compliance, you have to follow. Otherwise, you move out.
I have your answer.
You can't be teasing. Like, it's India, it's a big country.
Yes.
It's the 7th biggest economy and 40 million user base of Twitter. It's not a joke.
Yep. And no one, yes. Here's why, Anish. I know it's confusing. It's because Twitter's team is in America. And they are Americans. And they believe in freedom of speech. And they've never been to India. And they don't understand India's version of freedom of speech, which is a little different than America's version of freedom of speech. Because in America, we can say Donald Trump's a dickhead all day long. Which you try doing that in India, and then Modi's going to send people down to your office and force you to take down those tweets. And then Modi says to Twitter, you take down these tweets or you get out of our country. And then Twitter says, really? Do we really have to do that? Okay. A week later, I will take them down. And then Jack Dorsey is in a big problem, or the leadership it's not really Jack, but the leadership at Twitter is in a big problem, because if they take down those tweets, their employees say, hey, boss, we didn't like that you took down those tweets, and now me and 500 of the engineers have decided if you do that again, we're not working here anymore. Bye-bye, Twitter. Teams leaving.
America.
And
America, son, it's America. This is freedom of
What?
goddamn
It's
speech.
Mexico.
Why did you're silencing the beautiful, brilliant people of India? Those were their tweets. Why did you take them down? They
the thing
didn't.
is, Tyler, I think the point that you're touching on is the culture and the value and the
Correct.
history, right? So basically, like when I go to Sri Lanka now, I take my kids. So I lived in England for 30 years, and when I go to Sri Lanka, I go to my village. You know what? The memory that I have is my temple, the values, my neighbors, the community. I love it, and to me, that brings who I am, and it kind of this is the kind of stuff I want to pass to my children. Now, the China came into the country. How did they came in? Because they saw a loophole and they had a strategic wanted to take a investment in Sri Lanka, so they pumped a lot of money, got them into debt, chokehold. Now you see a lot of Chinese in my village, and you see Buddhist mosque, monasteries there, and you go the Chinese walking. Am I happy about it? I don't, because they don't respect the way of life, right? They come in, they're only there for one purpose, which is financial incentive, nothing else. They are there because their quality of life in Sri Lanka is much better than some shitty, polluted city, in China. Maybe they're criminals, they're here to work on the infrastructure stuff, right? So to me, they're destroying the culture and the value. So Modi, this is something that Modi is doing right. And you've got to clap our hand for what he's doing, because you don't want to let people like Twitter coming into a country like India who don't understand the thousands of language, the history, the value to come in. They with this Facebook Zuckerberg mindset, let's break things, what is it? Fix things, break. What is it? What is that thing that he
Work
says?
fast, break things.
Break things and move fast or
Yeah.
something.
Move
That
fast,
doesn't work.
break things.
Oh, folks, that doesn't work. That's what Twitter trying to do, and that's what all of these fintech companies will do, right? It doesn't work in India, right? So I think what is Modi is doing is, either you play our game or just get out. I think it works for India. I think Sri Lanka should have been done it, but the problem is that Sri Lanka got too much into debt with China, and they can't, and they're paying the price for it now.
Okay, so I got now 50 headlines that I got to burn through real fast. I'm going to go as fast as I can, and of course, people can chime in. And Cal sent in a tweet that Canada heat wave. The update is that lightning strike has triggered wildfires now in British Columbia, which are visible from space because it's so dry up there now that it's one big tinderbox. It's just like ready to ignite because everything's so dry up there due to all the heat. That's sad to hear. Cal sent in another one about big tech healthcare. Google Health app leak shows early interface of Google's Health app that they've been trying to hide because they don't want everyone to know that they're coming for the health industry, right? Because if it is known, the health industry in America is going to do what the banking industry is doing in India, which is go to the government and say, these geeks are coming to kick my ass, daddy, help me. So, but there's now been leaks of the Google Health app in the US, and they are going to take over everything. That's just how it works. But the government's now trying to shut them down. And now you know why. Alipay in China, which is one of the two top payment system apps in China, launches in-app NFT sales, which is really quite impressive, actually. One of China's largest payment service providers, Alipay, has launched a platform for the sale of NFTs, which makes a big step forward for the company. Indeed, we're making good pace here. Visa, the payment card processor, facial payments have been seen in Asia for a while, and now it's coming to Europe from what's called VTB and Visa test, what they call pay by glance. So you can pay with your face. And they've had this in China for more than a little bit. And then there's a fun little game that friends play in China when you go out drinking together. Is when it's time to pay, you all stand in front of the camera together and you let the robot pick who's going to pay, because you're all standing in front of the facial recognition system together, and it has to pick which face is going to pay. This is a new fun little game you can play when pay by glance starts rolling out in your part of the woods. And we're making good pace here. Penn scientists from Penn State correct genetic blindness with a single injection into the eye. Antisense therapy uses small molecules to alter RNA. Researchers have now used those molecules to alleviate a genetic form of blindness. Awesome. That's fantastic. Facebook publishes first monthly compliance report, says it took down content proactively using AI in India. And why are they doing this? Because the Twitter competitor in India, as Anish well knows, is called Koo, Koo, which we talk about every day here. And Koo is now in a really good position in India because it looks like Twitter is going to get kicked out of India. And that means good things for Koo, the Twitter copy, the Twitter clone based in India, domestically built in India, which is very, very, very incredibly compliant with the government because that's the whole point. And that's why Twitter's getting kicked out. And that's why Koo is not stupid. They're not going to get kicked out. They're going to do everything the government wants. And now you know why the government wants to kick out Twitter, because they have their own version of Twitter that will do anything that they want, that they can control every way to Friday, and they can tax and all the benefits of having your own local domestic version of an app, which is when they kicked out all the Chinese apps. You have all these new Indian versions of TikTok that are booming. And you've got all of these new Indian apps that are becoming unicorns, and it's great. Why not? Let's have our own. Kick out the Americans. Get these American apps out of here, too. We got the Chinese apps out. That worked well. That was great. We got a whole bunch of new domestic unicorns that we can control and tax and create millionaires locally who invest in other. It grows the ecosystem. Fuck these Americans. Fuck these Chinese apps. Let's do it ourselves. And now you're starting to see the same in Russia, where Russia is now telling the Americans that they have to have offices on the ground in Moscow, just as India did, right, Anish? That was one of the part of the things was you have to have representatives on the ground who are employees of the company. Local employees must be on the ground. That was part of the IT rules, which Twitter had trouble complying with because they hired a lawyer, which is technically not an employee. And India said, that's not an employee, that's a lawyer. You need an employee on the ground. Get with it. Follow the program. And then Twitter kept dragging their feet. And now they're going to get. And then India said, oh, okay, you know what, Twitter? You want to play games like that? Fine. You just lost your platform protection laws, meaning you as a platform are not responsible for what gets said on your platform. Well, you know what, Twitter? You don't have that anymore. So now anything said on your platform by 1 billion Indians, you're now legally responsible for. Have fun. I'm sure no one's going to say anything bad, though. I mean, why would any of a billion people? How long is it going to take for a billion people to say something the government finds offensive? It's probably going to take 1,000 years. No, it took about 10 seconds. And they knew it would take 10 seconds. And the very next day, the new boss of India Twitter's in front of the police station, and now it looks like he's going to jail because he's personally responsible because they lost their platform protection laws. Because now they're personally responsible for every single tweet. And now that's essentially a death sentence to Twitter. It's like telling Twitter, get the fuck out of here. We don't want you here. Stop wasting our
Can we
time
agree
here.
these are bad developments? I mean, these are not things for good, or is that a separate
It's not good
conversation?
for American tech companies. I think it is good for India that they have their own domestic versions of these things. I don't know if it's good net good for Indian citizens because it's potentially less
So Tyler, that's the point, right?
freedom of speech.
Tyler, that's the point.
Yeah.
What Modi's saying. What is good for India is not in Twitter's,
Right.
hand.
Right.
That's the point.
Well, more so in the Russian case, because Russia doesn't want people using the apps to coordinate and do all these things. And you better believe they are watching Clubhouse in every. There's a ton of Russian rooms in Clubhouse, by the way. Tons, huge rooms. And you better believe the government's listening to every one of those rooms day and night and wondering what Russia should do about Clubhouse or their own version of Clubhouse. What a beautiful tool for the government to have. The Russia's own version of Clubhouse that the government actually controls everything that's being said all the time. Pardon me, pardon me, Boris. We heard you said something yesterday. Please sit down. We'd like to talk to you about your feelings about Sir Vladimir Putin. Please have a cup of tea.
Why make
Yeah, but if you believe in the fair and open free trade of ideas and communication and putting Twitter or specifically Clubhouse aside, these are terrible developments, and the creation of the splinter net is a bad thing for society, globalism, and
back to the headline,
bringing us together. Right?
Facebook publishes its monthly compliance report for Mr. Modi, as did the Koo app, the Twitter competitor. They're both now saying, here's our report for the month of all the content we removed, Mr. Modi, as you asked for, boss. You're the boss. And just so you know, here's everything we took down, boss. Hope you like it, boss. Let us know if we can do better next month, boss. We'll see you next month, okay, boss? You'll be here same time,
And
same place, boss. We'll be right back, boss. We'll see you next month, okay?
and
So,
Tyler, wasn't one of the funny comments that most of the users on Coup are actually government employees? So the
or
fact
the
they censored
celebrities who are friendly with the government exclusively,
and the
yes.
fact they had to censor so many on a platform that is friendly to the government is kind of a tell too.
But now
So
the headline again, very very tellingly says Facebook publishes its first monthly compliance report. It says it took down content proactively using AIs, meaning anything we thought might be offensive, we took the liberty of actually just taking that down, just in case, boss, just for you, boss. Just for you, boss, because we want to. Hey, we're still good to do business here, right, boss? We can do a little payment system inside of our apps, right, boss? Because that's about $300 billion for us, boss. Right, boss. We can still do that, right, boss? Okay, boss. So how about this next month? We'll do the same. We'll same time, same place. We'll see you with. We'll give you another report. We'll show you everything we took down. You know, it's just like it was about 4,000 people said some stuff you might not like. Don't worry about it. They're bad people, boss. We took care of them, boss. There's no problem.
oh, and by the way, we have their addresses now for you too.
Hey, boss, you want to know the names of these dudes? Okay, listen, let's talk next month. We'll see what we can do. Maybe we're going to do a little identity verification system. If you want a little something, some little extra next month, but you let us know. We'll be right back because we ain't about to lose out on this $300 billion opportunity of doing a little financial services. Although I heard your banks are now talking to you, the Bank of India. You guys met yesterday, right? Yeah, don't worry about them dudes, boss, because they're just trying to confuse you, boss. We're good guys, boss. Look, we took down the stuff, right? Don't worry about that Bank of India stuff. Don't worry about us, boss. We're gonna be good. We are good to go, boss.
Tyler, where is this rant coming from, man?
I love it.
with
Love it.
the
Love it.
accent.
Love it. Love it. You're on flow. Keep
This is
going.
hilarious.
So, in other news, why you should stop using Google Chrome after aftershock update being reported by Forbes. Billions of users warned to quit Chrome as Google confirms alarming changes. Let's see. Google seems to be hiding. Chrome's rival Brave warned this week as trillion-dollar tech giant quietly confirmed a shocking update for its 2.6 billion users. Google is buying time to regroup, Brave said, which is a browser competitor that doesn't track your behaviors, and to consolidate its control over web tracking. If you're a Chrome user, this nasty new surprise is a genuine reason to quit. We already know that Chrome harvests much more of your data than other browsers, and now a critical update to stop you from being secretly tracked online. An update that was due in just a few months has been delayed by at least 2 more years. Oh. Third-party tracking cookies are sneaky little spies on your phones, tablets, and computers, following you around, reporting back to their masters. It's the tech that built up the vast targeting ad industry, but as Firefox developer Mozilla warns, this ubiquitous surveillance is used in ways that harm individuals and society. The advertising ecosystem is fundamentally broken in its current form, and they're now really trying to paint Chrome as the bad guys because they're keeping this cookie scheme alive. But there's more to the story than meets the eye, because in reality, the reason that Chrome really would love to stop these cookies, actually, but they can't, because then it will put them in more antitrust heat. So now the Brave browser, which doesn't track you at all, has got Google in the crosshairs, stuck in a catch-22 between a rock and a hard place, because, as I said, Google would love to stop these cookies, but if they do, it makes them look it makes them look like they have a monopoly. So they now have a hard choice: remove the cookies, but now you look like more of a monopoly, which the government is claiming you are. So okay, so we're not going to stop. We're not going to remove the cookies, and then your competitors say, "Aha! Told you they were trying to track all your data." So now they're stuck. It's a catch-22. But the competitor, Brave browser, isn't being really honest about why Google isn't stopping the cookies. So it's kind of a funny.
Nobody's
So
taking.
Tyler, again, it's coming back to the point we talked about India, right? So now, once you give the control to Facebook or Google, they can decide when they can remove these cookies. Just imagine they go into India and sweep the whole, every single thing that they've been protecting for the all these years, and suddenly you get. And again, it's all coming back to this point. We've seen this the power, right? In a single, that's the thing with India, and yeah, it's a great point.
Big Instagram and TikTok changes mean you'll no longer see videos. Big Instagram and TikTok changes mean you'll no longer see videos and fewer friends is the headline, the very mistaken headline, I happen to know, from the Washington Post. But let's go ahead and click on that. That seemed like clickbait, really intelligent clickbait, because it's wrong, and I want to prove that they're wrong. It's in the headline from Washington Post, which has not a good track record on accurate tech stories. Says big Instagram and TikTok changes mean you'll see. Oh, you they what a clever clickbait. The actual headline, once you click through, says big Instagram and TikTok changes mean you'll see longer videos but fewer friends. Move to allow longer videos means the apps might show you more ads. No, again, Washington Post, you don't know what's going on. I'm sorry, guys. The tech journalists at these big publications are not quite up to speed. Let me help you out here. Here's what's going on. So, indeed, the headline's correct. The real headline, not the Twitter headline. The Twitter headline says you'll see, anyway, big Instagram and TikTok changes mean you'll see longer videos. That's true. You are going to see longer videos and fewer friends. That's true too. You are going to see less of your friends on these apps. I'll explain why, an incredibly important reason why, in a minute. The move to allow longer video means the apps might show you more ads. Well, kind of, but not in the way that the Washington Post thinks that you will. The real reason is because they are going to become competitors to Amazon, essentially, for e-commerce. You're now going to see little shops inside of TikTok and Instagram. And these little shops, for all of the little mom and pop shops around your town, are now going to be able to make little shops inside of your favorite little apps like TikTok and Snapchat and TikTok and YouTube and WhatsApp and the native Facebook app, all of them. And when they do have their little shops inside of all of these social media apps, and they will be incredibly simple to make these tiny little shops, then the next thing that happens is all of the people who have influence and viewers inside of these apps are now going to be given the opportunity to promote products from these little shops and get a commission for selling those little products. In fact, they really don't have to do anything. It couldn't be more magically simple, because now all of the photos they've ever had before or videos will now have a machine learning algorithm that will detect the t-shirt and the pants and the shoes and the bicycle and the water bottle and the clock in every one of their 5,000 photos they ever took before. And now those items will be clickable. And when you click to buy the bicycle, a little pop-up pops up, shows you the same bicycle that's in the photo, but now you can buy it right here in Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat or YouTube or whatever without leaving the app, which they love because they want to keep you in the app and not send you to Instagram. So here's where it gets interesting. The creators of these content with their history of 5,000 photos now are going to start realizing I'm going to start getting more clicks on my products if I do videos instead of photos. And longer the video, the better. And then they're going to realize magically in about 6 weeks from now that, you know what, if I do a live video, I sell even more get more clicks than my pre-recorded videos, because now the audience is talking to me live about the bicycle in my live streaming video and my shirt live, and they're asking me and I'm selling them crap all over my house live to the audience live who are watching me and asking me questions, and I'm selling it, and I've got 5 left and now I've got 4 left, and there's a pressure to buy now which doesn't exist in a static photo or video, and you can buy right now, and I got 1 left. It's 30 seconds, it's gone. I'll try and have more next week. And this becomes the future of these apps, which they know, but the journalist at the Washington Post doesn't know that that's why you're going to see less of your friends. The journalist at the Washington Post thinks you're going to see less friends because you're going to see more ads. Not exactly. You're going to see a lot more live streaming shopping. It's what's called social shopping, live stream shopping. And that's why you're going to see a lot less of your friends. And that's why you're going to see a hell of a lot more video. But again, to this journalist, whoever wrote this. I don't even see their name on it, but it doesn't matter because they don't know what they're talking about. But that's tech media in June of 2021. So I'm retweeting that flawed article out so you can laugh at it for yourself from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. And then, Kieran, you sent in this one about the U.S. companies hit by the colossal cyber attack. We covered this, but I'm retweeting it out again from the BBC. Thank you for that. Faraz, you sent in one about the Dyson sphere could bring humans back from the dead. What the hell is that about?
I have no idea. I was hoping you in the room could unpack that one for me.
Gotta be honest, I have no clue, but that's clickbait if ever I saw it. It says, this cosmic megastructure may be the key to resurrection and immortality. This sounds like fucking a joke. What is this?
I know what this is about.
It says Russian researchers have outlined several ways technological resurrection may be possible in the future, including a method called digital immortality restoration based on recordings. In this method, a super intelligent AI uses the cosmic Dyson sphere megastructure to harness computers. Hold on, I got a sound file for this. Here we go. Humans can't build a Dyson sphere yet, but the researchers say nanorobots could one day do the job. Imagine this, in the far, far future, long after you've died, you'll eventually come back to life. So will everyone else who ever had a hand in the history of human
Tyler, it's not that far off. It's not that far off.
Be afraid.
But you said you didn't know what this is about,
thing.
In this scenario,
I don't know much about it.
Returning from the dead is a relatively normal part. The journey home will be a hell of a lot weirder than the destination. Go ahead, Faraz. What is this Dyson sphere craziness all about?
So what I don't know much about is the Dyson sphere, right? But the anti-aging thing has been going on for a while now, which I think Chris knows a lot more about. So I'm going to hand over to him.
That's two different technologies.
Yeah, so the Dyson sphere I know a little of. The concept is that if we want more energy, one of the best ways to do it is rather than just get a little bit of the energy that hits the Earth, why not go towards the sun and put a wrap around it, not too close, but a big old sphere around the sun or partially around it, and gather the energy straight from there. That's the idea that as civilizations progress, maybe that's one thing they will do. To harness energy direct from the sun. And then they seem to be tying that to some other story about AIs doing some sort of digital resurrection, reproducing people from archival data and then running simulations or something. It does. I think your first inclination, Tyler, of clickbait is probably a good one. Yeah.
If you want to get a list of questions on this topic, anything around longevity or anti-aging, I will be sitting with the experts at Harvard University later this year, like David Sinclair.
Yeah, David and George.
I think the point they're trying to make is that the processing power and the energy requirements to do this high fidelity, actual real simulation would require that much energy. I don't know. I think that's what they're trying to do, but they made it such an outlandish kind of connection. I think that it turned into really kind of BS. But
what interested me on this article, Chris, was that movie that, forgive me, I often, once I got into tech news, I started looking these things up, and that's what, it's really interesting. But there was this one movie that, I'm forgetting the guy's name, and how could I forget this guy? I've gone crazy. There was one fantastic movie which was kind of done with Pirates of the Caribbean. What the hell is that guy's name? How could I forget his name?
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp.
Yeah, Johnny Depp. There was this movie done with Johnny Depp, and Johnny Depp died, and he was brought back to life vis-a-vis some form of artificial intelligence tech, where parts of his life were restored and rebuilt through telecom and artificial intelligence, and they managed to do that. And it was just an AI-based system where he was living essentially alive in the artificial intelligence ecosystem. That's the best definition I can give.
Okay, so I got to jump through about 10 more of these tweets.
Can we do some quick eco
in a second? We will get there. JT, are you with us? Is JT on stage? Yes, you are.
Yeah, I am here.
So this is a really fantastic one you just sent in that I'm just tweeting out. That Facebook VR head, known as Boz, Andrew Bosworth, or as he's known inside of Facebook as Boz, says that Quest inside of VR Oculus Quest, which is their headset, that ads weren't communicated well, but backlash was too much. And he says this in a podcast, basically, right?
Yeah. So basically, he's trying to say that Facebook had a PR marketing nightmare. Ads were intended to be contextual and relevant. They were supposed to be another stream for the developers, and he kept emphasizing that it was supposed to be for the developers. But in the marketing, that didn't come out as the way they had planned for it. For the consumers, it felt like you're just putting ads into another device that we're buying, and that's not a good thing.
Or not, JT, believe it or not, we actually know more about this than even Boz does on this particular issue, because the company who was going to put the ads inside of their headset was a friend of mine named Tommy Palm from Resolution Games. And when the first headline came out, the first headline was Facebook's Oculus Quest is now going to have ads inside the VR experience, and it's going to be done inside of a game made by a company called Resolution Games. And I said, that's a friend of mine's company. And so I reached out to them and said, hey, let's talk about this. And they said, we can't really talk about it. And then the next day there was a new headline that said, there's no longer going to be ads inside of Facebook Oculus Quest. And now I know why he couldn't join us in Clubhouse, because I said, hey, we're talking about this headline in Clubhouse. Why don't you come talk about it with us? He said, I can't. And then the next day I said, hey, now I see why you can't, because now you're not going to put the ads in. 24 hours later, there was an update headline that Resolution Games is not going to put ads inside of Oculus Quest. So now I said, hey, now that whenever this gets resolved, why don't you come into our Clubhouse room called Tech News Around the World and tell us what's really going on, you as the actual person behind this actual headline, who actually made the actual decision around this actual technology. And he said, sure, I'll come in. And he did. So he came in, and you can flash your mic on stage if you heard what my friend Tommy Palm said, where he outlined for us the actual play-by-play of what actually, in fact, fucking happened, which is more than what the Andrew Bosworth from Facebook, from Oculus, knows himself. So I know more about this issue than he does, and so does the people in this room who heard it from the horse's mouth, Tommy Palm. And here's what happened. So Tommy said, yeah, indeed, we had a game, which is in this VR experience of this particular game, you're in an arena. And in this arena, we had ads in the arena, just like when you go into an actual arena. When you go into actual arenas, there's actual ads inside the arena. So these ads that we had inside this arena felt like an authentic replication of the actual experience we're trying to replicate. So we didn't think anyone would care, because we're trying to replicate the feeling of being in an arena, which has ads. And if you don't have ads in an arena, it doesn't feel very much like a realistic virtual reality of an arena scenario, does it? No, it doesn't. So that doesn't matter, because everyone misunderstood, because they got all hot and bothered and excited when they saw the headline there was going to be ads inside of a game, and they didn't stop to think maybe it's actually good that there's ads inside the games, because that's actually the environment they're creating and replicating actually has ads. So when all of the blowback came, fast and furious, misguided, misunderstood, misinformed blowback of how dare you put ads inside of a Facebook VR experience? Oh my God, you're going to kill VR. Tommy, being a nice Swedish guy, was like, okay, sorry, never mind, forget it. We'll stop. No problem. Stop the train. We'll get off. Bye-bye. No ads inside the game. We hear you loud and clear, boss. Okay, boss, whatever you say, boss. And they stopped. So that's what happened. And now Boz can say whatever he wants about how he thinks happened. But we heard from Tommy Palm, who's the CEO of Resolution Games, precisely what happened. And that's what happened. So that's what it is. And you're very welcome. It's called Tech News Around the World. And we get the actual person behind the actual headline to tell us what the fuck actually really in fact happened. And Tina just sent in an article about Getter, the social media site recently launched by longtime Trump aide Jason Miller, is so filled with hentai, even QAnon is disgusted. But by the way, it's being filled with hentai as a joke by the people who want to sabotage this app, because hentai is infuriating Trump fans in a way, because they're basically memeing all of the. So basically, the Jason Miller, who was Donald Trump's spokesperson, made a new app called Getter, Gettr, for all of the Trump fans. Great. Here's where the fun starts. a bunch of geeks who are Trump haters jumped in, created a bunch of bots to create all kinds of crazy meme and contents that they know would infuriate this audience of Trump supporters. And they're totally irate. And so that's the essence of what's really going on that I doubt even the author of the article even understands, but that's okay. So next headline is somebody sent in an article about a mini heart in a lab can pump fluid just like the real thing. And that's kind of a very cool innovation. And I tweeted that so you can read it. And Faraz just sent in the article that Schwab's $200 million charge puts scrutiny on robo-advisor issues, which is becoming a thing. And in fact, Wealthfront is essentially that, which is becoming itself a very successful startup where you can, instead of paying a human wealth manager, you can have an algorithmic automated wealth manager who looks at all of your data and your risk profile. You take a survey, you tell it your risk appetite, how much money you have that you want it to manage, and it calculates the best place for you to allocate all of your money in a diversified way to have the best returns. And mathematically, it does really, really well, like far better than most humans. So you can add wealth managers to the list of things that will soon be replaced, except for the very top performers. And then eventually what you'll have is the marriage of the two. Is you'll have humans using the best wealth managers will use the augmented AIs as part of their strategy of making their human stuff. And the humans who are able to outperform algorithms will still have a job, and the 90% who can't won't. And that's what's going to happen in that industry. And anyone in that industry can feel free to comment. Kieran, what do you think? Okay. Investigators have uncovered how a tiny, desperately poor nation by the name of North Korea, that's the headline, by the way. I'm not making that up. This is the BBC's headline, by the way. Investigators have uncovered how a tiny, desperately poor nation can silently reach into the email inboxes and bank accounts of the rich and powerful thousands of miles away, and nearly got away with it within inches of success. But how did they do it? Is the article from the BBC about how North Korean hackers nearly pulled away $1 billion out of people's bank accounts. And so how did they do it? Well, you're going to have to go to the Tech News Twitter account and read that article at TNATW, short for Tech News Around the World. It's the first 5 letters of the first 5 words of Tech News Around the World. Now here's where it gets fun, everybody. These next 3 articles all go together perfectly, separate sources, all at the same time. Watch how magically beautiful these all go together. Here's the first one from the San Francisco Chronicle about San Francisco. So they kind of know what they're talking about in these cases. More than a fifth, so 20% of San Francisco office buildings are now vacant, the highest level since 2003, which was the absolute bottom of the end of the tech crash, which happened in 2001, 2002. At the bottom of the end of the crash, when it looked like tech had died in 2003, that's where we're back to now in San Francisco. 20% of San Francisco offices empty. That's the first headline. Here's the next. Target says it's closing all 6 of its San Francisco stores early because of crime, specifically thefts and shoplifting. How are these related? Well, let me explain. Because the district attorney, Chesa Boudin of San Francisco, has made it very clear, if you arrest shoplifters, we're going to not press charges on them and let them go. So the police arrested a whole bunch of shoplifters, filled the jails. The jails are full of people who will be let go because the district attorney has made it very clear, Chesa Boudin, we're not going to actually prosecute these people. You can hold them in jail if you want, but we're not going to prosecute them. So do what you like, police. And now the jails are full. And now the jails only hold, X number of people. And there's 500 X people that now know that the jails are full and that they, even if they were arrested, wouldn't get prosecuted. So it's now an open heyday to go steal anything you want in San Francisco, and everybody knows it. So it's a lawless wasteland. Get it? And now do you understand why everyone's moving out and it's the lowest vacancy rates since 2003? Yeah. Remember I said 3 headlines. Here's the third. Here's the third headline from Cron 4, the main television station in the Bay Area. 70% of San Francisco residents say quality of life has declined. And here's why. Here are some of the key findings from the poll. 60% believe it should be a high priority for San Francisco to maintain funding for police academy classes in order to recruit younger, diverse, progressive members to replace those who have retired. Left 76% say it should be a high priority for the city to increase the number of police officers in high crime neighborhoods. It won't matter. Because if you hire more police, what do you think they're going to do? Arrest more people, right? They can't. The jails are full. And even if they could, what's going to happen to those people who get arrested? Absolutely nothing, because your district attorney has this incredibly wild idea that nobody should be charged for theft.
Such bullshit.
82% want to see
It's
more
the
caseworkers.
shit sandwich. It's the shit sandwich we've been served in America and in particularly California. I'm sorry.
82% want to see more caseworkers on the street to help individuals suffering from mental illness. 74% providing more temporary shelter for homeless individuals. And I think it was Tina who wanted, or Chetna who wanted to jump in.
No, it was me,
Yeah.
Tina.
Yeah.
So, and not to pile on, I mean, I live here and I've actually born and raised, so I've lived here, but to pile on to this is how bad it's gotten in terms of the disparity between wealthy and not. Atherton, which is consistently over the last 30 or so years ranked in the top like 5, if not top 10 places to live in the country, or the wealthiest places in the country.
Last year, it was the wealthiest zip code in America.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Tony. There has been a recent rise in Atherton burglaries that are so alarming. And apparently,
so I can add to this. I know a resident in Atherton. I sit with him pretty often, and so he was involved with the investigation with the FBI and CIA, because any time when there's over $1.2 million monetary value and cross-state borders, actually, the Secret Service got involved. So the Secret Service got involved, and they got down to this. So yes, during quarantine, there was break-ins in all the wealthiest zip codes, right, in a number of parts of the world, Toronto, parts of UK, but over here in Atherton, Secret Service got involved. So what they came and found down to it, people, so they hired like Latino gangsters and South American gangsters. Now I'll come back to who they were, but people thought they were just Hispanics, Latinos. What they would do, they're carjack, file down the VINs, take away the license plate, and they would monitor these, wealthy individuals, which was actually quite easy because the wealthy individuals were at their vacation homes or on yachts and stuff. So these mega $1 million mansions were vacant. I forget the monetary value of how much they've ended up stealing. It's like somewhere in the ballpark of 800 million or 800 billion. I'll come back and find it. But
it would not be 800 billion. It would be 800 million in that case. Yeah.
Okay, 800 million. Okay, but close to $1 billion, which is still crazy. Anyway, who it actually was, it was the mafia, the Chinese mafia and triad actually hired these gangsters from South America to target these wealthy individuals, and the Secret Service has confirmed that. And I know from
send me the link, Anthony. I would love to see any evidence of this.
I don't know. Okay, you know what? I'll have to find out from my contact. I think there's been some articles recently, but before it was just word of mouth. I'll find something.
Yeah, but if it is verifiable, then of course a journalist will publish.
I remember now. Yeah, it is. It's in the Atherton News. I'll find it and I'll send it.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I don't want to name names or anything like that, but it wouldn't surprise me when people start realizing, oh, we can go anywhere. Well, I'm going to stop robbing the Walgreens and go down to Atherton into these mega mansions where half of them are empty anyways. Why am I wasting my time stealing toothpaste from a fucking Walgreens? Yeah, this is just common sense. Anyway, so other fantastic headlines at the minute. Let's blast through a few here. We did cover the North Korean and the $1 billion hacking on the banks, and they nearly got away with it. And then Thai royalists are doxing hundreds of pro-democracy activists using Google Maps, according to the South China Morning Post, which says Google took down 2 Google Map documents on Monday that had listed the names and addresses of hundreds of Thai activists who were accused by royalists of opposing the monarchy. Oh boy. Oh, hot damn. That is some serious shit, y'all. Because if you say anything bad about the monarchy in Thailand, you're going to jail for the rest of your life, even for saying anything even potentially negative. And so now somebody had made a map of the supposedly anti-royalist folks, which would get them in incredibly hot water, even by Thais who are loyal to the monarchy would come and pull them out of their houses in that case. That's incredibly dangerous. That's wild. So let's hope that gets resolved. And then speaking of Thailand, here's another article I'm tweeting out right now. Overseas tourists roam free on Thailand island of Phuket without quarantine. That's not exactly true. And again, journalists need to do better jobs. I'm here in Thailand on the islands talking to the people involved in doing this sandbox for Phuket. And it's not without quarantine. There's actually a 7-day quarantine when you arrive in Phuket. You have to stay on the island for 7 days. And then you can go about the island. You can read the article, which is mistaken, as most articles are. And this is just the matter of journalism in 2021 is journalists don't, unless they're on the ground at that location, and that's why we do tech news around the world, by the way, from people all around, like Animish, who's on the ground in India, who came in trying to give us an update on what's going on. We just happen to have other people all over India who come in every day and tell us what's going on the ground there, and that's why we knew what he was trying to share. But that's why this room is so special. So Lakeisha, who's also in Bangkok, just sent in one that about the first time this is kind of interesting. The first time real estate agent Rochelle Atlas Mays saw Julie Stevens' home in Santa Monica, where I used to live, she knew was perfect for TikTok. One California real estate agent invited TikTok creators to film inside her $5.3 million Santa Monica home. Within 2 weeks of hitting the market, the property was in escrow after receiving multiple offers. Interesting use case of somebody selling a home on TikTok via TikTok influencers. Very clever development indeed. I imagine we will see much more of that. And then Kuram, who often joins us, sends in one that the Jetsons flying car may be closer to reality is the headline. A flying car prototype from Klein Vision that features retractable wings and a tail completed a test flight between 2 Slovakian cities. Other companies such as Volkswagen, Hyundai, Porsche are all developing flying cars or backing startups that have prototypes in progress, which we cover almost daily. But thank you for the update on that one from Slovakia. And then Chris, you had this one about Google Assistant records audio even when you're not using it, and which we've told you many times before, but now it's in the headlines.
It's crazy that it takes the Indian government to reveal that to us.
Google Assistant records your conversations even when not in use, the company reportedly admitted to an Indian government panel. So it turns out that even when saying the word OK Google, without saying the words OK Google, the AI assistant still listens to your conversations discreetly. Google has, and what, by the way, why are they doing that? It's a trick question, everybody. For that juicy data. They can't stop. They're addicted. It's like heroin to them. They need that juicy, sweet data. They can't help themselves. They're going to violate your privacy. They'll sell your grandma to the blood bank. They'll take your kidneys for that sweet, juicy data. They just cannot stop with that. It's just a one-track mind with these big tech companies. Google has already previously admitted recording conversations on Assistant in a blog post back in 2019. However, the tech giant clearly said it does not do so without the magic words. They promised. They swore. I really mean it this time. I won't do it again. I promise. I promise you, I'm done. I'm done with my data collecting, juicy data sucking ways. I swear. I'll never do it again, boss. I swear. And they just did it again because they're junkies. They're data junkies. That's what it is, folks. They are data junkies.
Can we do a Google Eco thing?
We'll get there, Dan. Hold on to your pants.
Well,
Is the house on fire, Dan?
Off for another room.
Go do that, Dan.
Minutes.
Have fun, buddy.
Right.
The house on fire? I'm sorry. You must be in Canada. So the next one from Matt about, you want to do this healthcare IT news, Matt? Lawsuit filed district court this week for plaintiffs, healthcare industry, about Amazon Alexa enabled device. Matt? Earth to Matt.
I was back in the last one,
Okay.
Tyler. I was imagining Google coming into the confession box
Yes. Google.
I have a little confession to make.
I've been bad. I have sinned. I've been listening to your conversations. In a suit filed in district court this week, 4 plaintiffs in the healthcare industry say that Amazon Alexa enabled devices have captured private information without their intent. Oh my God, it's happening again. 2 headlines back to back, and I swear to God, I did not arrange them this way. I got to tweet this out right now. It's the same, essentially the same headline about a different big data company, this time Amazon. Here it is. In a suit filed in the district court this week, 4 plaintiffs in the healthcare industry say their Amazon Alexa enabled devices have captured private information without their intention. I mean, they didn't allow it. And Amazon is listening to your stuff without your intention, and they can't help it. Why? And why are they doing it? They're doing it for that sweet, sweet, juicy, juicy data. They really can't help themselves. They are data junkies, everybody. They gotta get that fixed. They gotta get your data. They just gotta have that data. They need it. They just need that data. And they said they weren't doing it. And they promised up and down. I swear to you, we're not doing it anymore. I swear we are not doing this data thing no more. That's the last time. I promise. I fixed myself. We went to rehab and we fixed the problem. No more data collected, no more. And then they did it again. Here it is again. And they'll do it again, and they'll do it again, and they'll do it one more time again because they're data junkies. They're data junkies.
Hey Tyler, I sent you a meme of that Dave Chappelle. That y'all got any more of that? You got to do a T-shirt and like donate the money or
Y'all
whatever
got
you
any
want to do with it.
data?
But I know people would scoop it up. It's just so hilarious.
Y'all got any? And then here's that article Dan wanted, but we'll skip it. Fuck it. So thank you for joining Tech News Around the World. We got some people doing the.
Oh, I love it, man.
Yeah, where
Saturday Tyler is my favorite.
Tyler, just a quick one on that. You remember that acquisition that happened a couple weeks ago?
Which one?
It was an acquisition in the healthcare space, and it was related to the ability to have Siri be present in appointments with GPs. And we discussed this point of that, and we never actually touched it in so much depth upon it. But I'd actually brought it up, saying this could be a possibility for Siri to extract data from appointments. And it's funny how Alexa has now done that. But I'm forgetting the acquisition. I wish someone would remember the name of the acquisition and the headline where Siri, or maybe it was Alexa, I can't remember. But there was one of these that was being deployed with GPs so that they could have appointments with patients.
So check this out.
It was a massive deal.
So Anthony found the article in the Atherton News about 800,000, not 800 million. Oh boy, that's a
no, that's 800,000 from Atherton at that time in Christmas time, but around the nation it was like 800 million.
Okay,
altogether.
But the headline, we got to go with the headline. If you can find a headline about 800 million, then we got something. But this one says nearly 800,000 was stolen from an Atherton home, one home, by the way. And yeah, well, let's see if I think it's safe to say there'll be more. And let's hope they have their own drone army to defend themselves. Yeah.
I'm trying to find news, anything about the Secret Service. It's just so hush-hush that I'm probably not even allowed to talk about that. It's only about the residents at Atherton, so
okay,
that's not information.
Okay.
800,000, 800 million, 800 billion. Anthony.
Come
on, man.
After a while, it starts adding up. So there is a MedTech newsroom going on, if I understand correctly, or there was, and we just blew right over it. I'm not sure. Wasn't
no,
health
not
tech tomorrow
we don't
morning.
have one yet. No, it's later on.
In 5 hours. 5 hours time, I think.
Yeah. Okay, that's right. Chris, what?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Oh my God, Chris, I have to send out this photo via Twitter. So for those who were fans of the, God damn it, what was the show? What was this show from? Dave Chappelle, the Dave Chappelle show, where he did an appearance on what was the show? Fear Factor, as a character named Tyrone Biggins. And he's a crack addict as part of his comedy skit.
Oh, I remember that was hilarious.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about.
And he keeps asking, y'all got some crack? Y'all got some crack? And so somebody made a very funny photo that I'm tweeting out. Chris, did you make the photo?
Yeah. Dude, because Tyler, I cannot hear the word data anymore without hearing your voice going, sweet, sweet, juicy, juicy data.
So you have to see the tweet, the photo that I just sent out from Chris, which is truly genius. It's a photo of David Chappelle dressed as Tyrone Biggins saying, y'all got more of that sweet, sweet, juicy, juicy data. It's funny. Okay. Well, we'll end it there. We'll save there's a shit ton of headlines that people keep sending in. And
that was just great.
And Don is crack. Todd sent in another funny one about a confession of Google taking your sweet, sweet, juicy, juicy data.
and someone posted a very nice T-shirt of technology.
Oh yes,
the world, right?
yes. Somebody
very
did.
Nice.
Yes, I need to find that and give a quick shout out. Somebody bought a shirt from the Tech News shop, which you will see from the Tech News Twitter account on the top pinned tweet. And you can get a shirt or a mug too and become part of the very beautiful family of tech newsers, as we're known around the webs, by getting a mug or a shirt and sending in a photo. And I will add that to the pinned tweets. And very nice photo of Chip Wolf there that we tweeted out. And let me get that photo, and we're going to add it to the thread of photos. So have a fantastic weekend, everybody. We may or may not meet tomorrow, just like we may or may not have met today. We don't know. It depends if there's good news to go through, like there was today. But lately there has been. So fingers
Happy
crossed.
4th of July. In case we don't meet tomorrow.
To our American friends, happy 4th of July. To our British friends, we beat your ass, and we got this country all to ourselves. You ain't nothing. You ain't my granddaddy fought in the Battle of the Bulge against these damn Brits, and that's why we got this freedom over here, y'all. But Cheryl, the reason that the Singaporeans are okay with the fingerprint data, because you guys don't have guns. So if the government can't,
we don't need that.
Yeah, sure you don't. But the Texans, they not only they got guns, all their friends got guns. And so when the government comes and says you need to do your fingerprints, you hear a click click. Say what, boy? We need to do what now, son?
And Tyler, remember, they gave up their chewing gum. Come on, if they can't hold on to their chewing gum, what else are they going to hold on to?
This is for a better cause. You can eat chewing gum in Singapore, by the way.
Oh,
yeah, for my warm mouth. Like you couldn't even say that.
We have a good reason for doing that. Go find out why.
No, but
all right.
Reasons are not always.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, if anyone's interested in Digital Health Africa,